Hey, what's up? It's cute what if? This side. Today we will be seeing what if Deku became the unsung hero of villains. Before we move ahead with the FIC, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future what ifs like this. This story will have intense themes, scenes, and violence, so you are warned. Prologue. Authorities have identified the perpetrator as Izuku Midoriya. Although only 7, he is considered highly dangerous. If sighted, notify authorities but do not approach, as he has been known to attack even his own family. He has no distinguishing features and is rather plain-looking. That's not true. I didn't mean it. He was a hero, he wasn't supposed to act like a villain. All Might, why didn't you save me? 8 years later. Izuku watched a video of All Might, who proclaimed, it's fine, why? Because I'm here. Midoriya smiled weakly at the screen, still watching it to this day. Dabi, sitting across from him, scoffed, questioning why they would watch something like that. They were in a 2-story cafe, seated on the 2nd level in a booth with a nice view. I don't know, Dabi, Midoriya replied, lifting his coffee mug. I guess because I always wanted to be a hero. He took a sip. The waitress tending the bar on the 2nd level approached with their orders. You guys sure do come here a lot, she said cheerfully. Dabi gave her an indifferent glare before returning to his food. Midoriya rubbed the back of his green hair, trying to find the right words. Why yeah, we like the food, Uraraka. He caught himself before revealing too much about their lives as villains. By the way, what school do you guys go to? I'm from UA, but I had to take this part-time job to pay for tuition, she sighed, hinting at her family's tough times. I only went to school when I was younger, Midoriya admitted, not feeling hungry and only ordering coffee. He took another sip and placed the mug back down. Dabi eyed him, finishing his food with a sadistic slurp. Midoriya was sharing a personal truth he usually kept quiet about. What about you? Uraraka asked Dabi, her cheerful tone contrasting with his demeanor. The food's good, he replied, returning to his meal, ignoring her. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted as a loud voice echoed from the bottom floor. The money now. Midoriya and Dabi exchanged glances but shrugged it off. A robbery was unfolding. A man with a quirk that allowed him to shoot bullet-like projectiles from his limbs climbed the circular stairs to the 2nd floor. Nobody move. Uraraka, one of the few waitresses willing to act, stood tall and defensive in front of their booth. Midoriya hesitated, taking a sip of his coffee, impressed by her bravery. Dabi continued eating as the villain attempted to take hostages. Uraraka tried to take him down when his back was turned, but he turned at the last moment and fired a projectile from his elbow, hitting her shoulder. She fell to the floor, gripping her wound. He also stopped the bartender who attempted to hit the distress button under the bar. Midoriya and Dabi remained nonchalantly enjoying their food and coffee. Oi, didn't you hear me? Get with the rest of them, the villain shouted, pointing at them. Dabi kept eating, while Midoriya scribbled in his notebook, muttering about the villain's quirk. They're ignoring me? The robber yelled, pointing both palms at them. He fired blasts from each hand. Dabi shifted his head to the side, bored, while Izuku slid out of the booth and drop-kicked the villain. The impact rocked the villain back. Izuku spread his legs and twisted, slamming his lower leg into the villain's back and dropping his higher leg onto his chest in a swift takedown. The citizens watched in awe. Uraraka gasped, standing and clutching her shoulder. Hey, amazing! You didn't even use your quirk. Midoriya slung the villain over his shoulder, while Dabi paid the bill, leaving a hefty tip. I'll drop him off at the police station, he said. Uraraka could only stare at his back as he left, wondering if he was a hero. Midoriya shoved the villain against a wall in an alley. The man groggily regained consciousness. So what if you caught me? I am a villain. This is what I deserve, right? Dabi stood off to the side, uninterested in the exchange. The villain opened his mouth, but Midoriya quickly clamped his hand over it. Why did you want to rob them? Midoriya asked, his voice sincere. The villain hesitated but eventually answered, seeing the resolve in Midoriya's eyes. I need money to feed my kids. I never meant to be a villain. One day I accidentally used my quirk and hurt someone. Midoriya sympathized, understanding the weight of those words. Here, I know someone who can give you honest work, even if you're a villain. He handed the man a business card and a few bills for food. Are we done? Dabi asked, beginning to walk out of the alley. Dabi, wait up, Midoriya called, following him. Make sure you stay low. He waved at the villain, who wanted to take care of his family. The man gasped at Midoriya's toothy grin, a heroic grin. As they left, the villain bowed his head, clutching his fists. Thank you. Really. Thank you so much. The two walked down the empty street, Izuku smiling while Dabi kept his hands in his pockets. Suddenly, Toga came running up to them. Izuku-kun. She leaped, wrapping her legs around him, one hand on his shoulder while raising the other high with a knife. I missed you. Blood trickled down as she pulled the knife out. Ah, he cried, wincing as she giggled. Just one more, she exclaimed, trying to stab him again. He cuffed her wrist, stopping her. Hello to you too, Toga-chan, but it still hurts when you do it. One's enough, right? But Izuku, she giggled, you're already healed. See. She attempted to stab him again, but he restrained her grip. Eventually, she gave up, and the three started walking together. Did you get enough? Dabi asked her. She broke into hysterical giggles. I did. Guess what? It was a pair of newlyweds. There was so much blood. I gave them the best wedding gift. Now they can be together forever. Hey, Izuku-kun, we should be together forever too, right? Dabi only needed a yes or no. He didn't need to hear the rest. She laughed awkwardly. Izuku hesitated, expressing his reluctance to Toga. He suggested they head home instead. Toga, however, was eager to watch a horror film, and the three villains made their way to the apartment they shared. You've heard of the hero killer, haven't you? One of them asked. Stain? He truly believes in his ideals. I haven't seen him in a while, though, Izuku replied, a hint of concern in his voice. Oh, you seem to know him well, Izuku, came the teasing response. Izuku was caught off guard, unsure of how to respond. The conversation shifted as the villain continued, revealing a new job opportunity involving a kid claiming to have started a league of villains. What does that have to do with us? I couldn't care less about something that sounds so ridiculous, Dabi scoffed. Dabi as remorseless as ever. But I heard they have a plan to take down All Might, the villain said, piquing their interest. All Might? It can't be, Dabi replied, intrigued. The symbol of peace, huh? Now that's something I want to hear about, the villain continued, drawing them in. Good, I've got both of your attention. Let's talk about the attack on USJ. Izuku felt a wave of worry wash over him. He was a villain, yet All Might remained his hero. The thought of the Numu sent a shiver down his spine. Could All Might truly defeat such a creature? As shadows enveloped him, he donned his mask and hood, concealing his identity. He adjusted his gloves, determined to face whatever came next. He hoped for a chance to meet All Might, and as the shadows dissipated, he found himself in the ruins zone, surrounded by low-ranking henchmen. He noted that the bartender would separate the class with his quirk and then unleash the Numu on All Might. Time was of the essence, and he prepared to sprint when two students unexpectedly appeared amidst the villains. Izuku's eyes widened in disbelief as he recognized Kaken. Memories of their past flashed through his mind, reminding him of the days when they were just kids. Kaken was now a student at UA, and he was fighting alongside a spiky redhead. Explosions erupted as they clashed with the villains, their attacks powerful and decisive. Kirishima blocked a punch with his hardening quirk and retaliated with a heavy hook. Bakugo leaped off a fallen enemy and unleashed his explosions, sending villains flying. Kirishima noticed a shadow looming above him and glanced up, but the bright lights obscured his view. Suddenly, he felt a sharp blow as a spinning leg drop struck him, causing the ground to tremble beneath him. A hardening quirk. Simple but effective, Izuku noted, observing the fight. He admired Kirishima's resilience as he pushed through the pain. Deku took advantage of the moment, performing a backflip and landing gracefully. Kirishima charged at him with a flurry of hard-infused punches. Deku skillfully dodged, realizing that Kirishima had to sacrifice defense for power. He seized the opportunity, landing a powerful kick that sent Kirishima crashing to the ground. Bakugo, focused on the remaining threats, rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Kirishima stood up, spitting out blood and stretching his limbs. Not only is he tough, but he's also a solid ally, Izuku thought, tightening his gloves. He needed to reach All Might quickly. A sudden explosion caught his attention, and he braced himself for action. The wind pressure from Bakugo's attack sent Izuku skidding across the concrete, but he quickly regained his footing. Bakugo glared at him, expressing his annoyance. Izuku felt the weight of past bullying but chose not to respond. He scanned the area, realizing the henchman had been defeated. He needed to finish this quickly. Kirishima and Bakugo teamed up, combining their offensive and defensive abilities. Dust swirled around them as they fought. Where did he go? Kirishima wondered aloud. Focus. Keep your eyes open. Bakugo shouted, sensing a presence behind him. He turned just in time to see Izuku charging at him. Not on my watch. Kirishima shouted, pushing Bakugo aside and intercepting Izuku's attack with his forehead. Izuku winced but pressed on. Bakugo vaulted over Kirishima, grabbing Izuku by the throat and launching him into a collapsed building with an explosion. Izuku's back hit the wall, and he coughed as he fell to the ground. He struggled to his feet, acknowledging Bakugo's strength. But I won't back down, he thought. Bakugo, irritated, questioned Izuku's mumbling, feeling a strange familiarity in his words. A loud eruption echoed from the entrance of USJ, causing Kirishima to lower his guard. All Might, Bakugo murmured, recognizing the sound. He's here. That means we're saved, right? Kirishima exclaimed, hope rising in his voice. Izuku turned his gaze toward All Might, his eyes narrowing with determination. Something felt different about him. In a flash, Izuku appeared between Bakugo and Kirishima, surprising them both. They marveled at his speed, wondering how he had moved so quickly. With a swift motion, Izuku executed a twisting split, striking Bakugo and Kirishima simultaneously. They fell, knocked out, as Izuku prepared to head toward the entrance. All Might, he thought, skidding to a stop in awe. The legendary hero was locked in battle with the Numu, showcasing his incredible strength. Plus Ultra! All Might shouted, delivering a final punch that sent the Numu crashing through the dome, shattering the lights above. The dust settled around Izuku as he watched, eyes wide with admiration. All Might truly embodied the symbol of peace, and Izuku felt an overwhelming urge to step closer to his hero. Dabi, alongside Shigaraki, observed Izuku with narrowed eyes, curious about his intentions. Despite the villain's retreat, Izuku continued to walk forward, feeling a sense of emptiness. He had always wanted to be like All Might, the pillar of society and the hope for many. All Might was his greatest hero. One day, Izuku would be able to walk alongside him, but for now, he was his roadblock. The innocent villain and symbol of peace clashed. Froppy was carrying Eraserhead along with Mineta when she asked who the newcomer was. Mineta cheered that it didn't matter because he didn't stand a chance against All Might. Uraraka waved from up the steps, her eyes lingering on the unfamiliar villain, Deku, noting that his body language looked familiar. Izuku breathed out in wonder, anticipating the moment. The greatest hero, All Might, wore his righteous smile as he stared down the villain, thinking that he still had a few more minutes in his muscular state but needed to find a successor soon. He questioned if this was another challenger, reminding them of what he had done to the monster meant to destroy him. Izuku gulped, acknowledging All Might's survival and declaring that he was his hero as he charged forward. All Might raised an eyebrow in surprise. Dabi watched with a bored expression, noting that Izuku had actually said it, glancing at Shigaraki, who was scratching his neck and mumbling angrily about a villain. Admiring a hero, Izuku yelled, "Plus Ultra," as he smashed his knuckles forward. All Might gritted his teeth and met the blow with a powerful Detroit smash. Izuku stumbled back, feeling the pain in his arm, which hung limply, battered but not broken. He rushed back at All Might with his other fist. All Might, reducing his power, met the punch again, causing Izuku's arm to break once more. All Might questioned why he was so reckless. Suddenly, a healed arm shot up for an uppercut aimed at All Might's chin. All Might evaded the attack, surprised that it had been completely destroyed moments ago. Izuku smiled, but that smile vanished when a heavy fist struck his gut, sending him crashing into the ground and causing a cloud of dust to rise. From the debris, Izuku burst forth, flying with green flaming wings. All Might stood tall, realizing he had no time for thoughts. He had to protect the students with the limited time he had. He rushed forward to meet the flying villain. Their fists collided again, and All Might's overwhelming power crushed Izuku's knuckles once more. Yet, Izuku did not back down, continuing to swing. With every hit, his arm broke, but green flames erupted around his injuries, healing him. Izuku had a stern expression, not villainous but determined. He declared he would show All Might something, pouring his feelings into his fists. All Might asked what he meant, but Izuku leaped with a twisted flip, prompting All Might to follow, shattering the ground with his powerful leap. Izuku prepared for an Iron Soul kick, spinning for momentum and slamming down at All Might, who raised his elbow to block it. All Might noted that Izuku's strength was above average, not due to his quirk but because his body was at its physical peak. Izuku held back the feeling of praise from All Might, thinking that if he could land just one hit, he could prove they weren't so far apart. He let out a battle cry, pulling his leg back and attempting a reverse calf kick. All Might intercepted, grabbing his leg before impact and throwing him down with destructive force. As Izuku plummeted, the wind pressure from the collision forced everyone back. All Might landed beside the crater he had created, realizing that this kid had given him more trouble than he anticipated. The sound of rubble rolling echoed, putting everyone on edge, even All Might. Emerging from the smoke-filled crater, Izuku's costume was stained red, and his breathing was labored. Yet, the flaming wings whirled around him, and his eyes crackled with green lightning. Mineta exclaimed in disbelief at how Izuku kept getting back up despite his injuries. Froppy reassured him that All Might always wins. Toga stood on a platform, watching Izuku with excitement, her cheeks flushed as she expressed her desire to see him in despair. She giggled, imagining the thrill of stabbing him repeatedly until she was satisfied. All Might warned Izuku to give up, stating he would only cause him more pain. Izuku swayed, repeating the word, pain, as he threw his head back in a moment of anguish, revealing a twisted expression. He declared that pain was all he knew. All Might flinched mentally, but he had no time to dwell on it as Izuku lunged at him with a powerful flap of his wings. All Might jumped back, surprised by the force. Izuku's flames had charred the ground where All Might had just been. All Might's eyes were shadowed as he resolved to end Izuku's suffering, realizing that the boy's life seemed to be filled with pain. Izuku's flames became a torrent of destruction as he called out to All Might. They collided in a flurry of blows, and All Might noted that while Izuku's flames were intense, he would persevere. Blood splattered beneath Izuku as his wounds continued to heal, but the rate of healing was slowing down. All Might recognized that every quirk had its limits and resolved to overpower Izuku's healing factor. He lamented that with such a powerful quirk, it was a shame Izuku had chosen the path of a villain, as he could have been a great hero. As All Might prepared to launch a final powerful smash, Izuku's eyes filled with pain as he questioned why heroes had made him walk this path when he had only wanted to be a hero like All Might. All Might hesitated, his punch weakening, but the blow still collided with Izuku. The impact sent him skidding and bouncing off the ground, landing close to Dabi. Dabi sighed, approaching Izuku and suggesting they leave before reinforcements arrived, dismissing the idea that they could take down All Might. All Might felt a sense of relief that they had decided to give up, realizing he had reached his limit. That boy, what did he mean? Heroes don't create kid villains. Midoriya lay face down, struggling to rise as blood seeped from his mask guard. His fingernails dug into the ground as he attempted to stand. All Might, surrounded by steam that concealed his weakness, urged him to stay down, expressing a desire to avoid further harm by ending the fight. Izuku forced himself to his knees, one hand clutching his ribcage while the other clawed at the ground for support. He coughed, frustration overwhelming him as he fell back down, banging his forehead against the earth. Desperation consumed him as he cried out for healing, his voice breaking. He pounded his stomach in a futile attempt to regain strength, tears spilling down his cheeks as he questioned why this was happening to him. Onlookers watched with concern, their eyes filled with distress. All Might felt particularly troubled, pondering what had transpired in the young boy's life. Toga caught up to Dabi, pausing with worry as she noticed Izuku's condition. She expressed her concern, questioning why he wasn't healing. Dabi, aware of the truth but choosing silence, reflected on Izuku's predicament. He felt a mix of pity and camaraderie, bending down to place a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Midoriya's cries subsided as he recognized Dabi's presence. He acknowledged him, admitting his exhaustion before losing consciousness. Dabi smirked, then turned his gaze to the heroes in training, noticing one in particular. He recognized the waitress from the cafe, realizing she likely didn't recognize him due to his disguise. He had no intention of harming someone who provided good food. Instead, he needed to create a barrier of flames as real heroes began to crowd the entrance. Kurogyri prepared to warp them away, and Dabi unleashed his flames, mocking the heroes as he declared their victory in the war against them, despite losing the battle with All Might. Later, Shigaraki kicked the fallen Izuku in frustration, expressing his disdain for the boy and questioning the broker's judgment. He was on the verge of losing control when a voice from the TV monitor interrupted him, asking him to calm down. Izuku's heart sank as he recognized the voice, and Dabi's interest peaked as he listened. Shigaraki protested, but the voice insisted on escorting Izuku home, prompting Kurogyri to activate his quirk. As they vanished from the bar, Izuku's last sight was the monitor, filled with dread. Shigaraki glared at Kurogyri, questioning his connection to Izuku, while Kurogyri casually mentioned serving him orange juice in the past. Dabi yawned as they materialized in their small living room, dropping onto the worn couch to rest. The apartment was run down, but they had managed to get power running in one of the rooms. They coexisted with some homeless individuals, who kept their secret in exchange for protection. Toga helped Izuku up, her demeanor somber as she led him to an abandoned room devoid of furniture. She laid him against the cold concrete wall, and he expressed his gratitude, though his voice was weak. Suddenly, Toga produced a knife, and Izuku's eyes widened in alarm. He attempted to scream, but his strength failed him. She stabbed him in the shoulder, her expression a mix of sadness and concern rather than joy. Izuku, confused and in pain, struggled against her hold. Toga's worry was palpable as she questioned why he hadn't healed, pressing her forehead against his in a moment of vulnerability. He tried to comfort her, despite the pain coursing through him. Toga's grip on the knife tightened, revealing her deep concern for him. As she pulled the blade from his shoulder, a small green flame ignited, beginning to close the wound. The room lit up with an emerald glow, and Izuku found Toga's beauty both mesmerizing and terrifying. As the flames diminished, Toga brushed her palm over the healing wound, captivated by the fire's warmth. She whispered about the nature of his flames, reflecting on how they burned everyone except him. "It only heals you." She sounded earnest, understanding his feelings. Her other hand gently rubbed his cheek. She loved seeing him heal, not because it meant she could hurt him more, but because it meant he was still alive, still with her. Deku was stunned by her caring action. He felt a rush of emotions as their breaths mingled, drawn together by an NTMT urge. Their lips met, moving softly against each other. The hand on his shoulder traced over the healed wound. She playfully tugged at his lower lip before releasing it, leaving a glimmer of moisture behind. Deku winced slightly but felt her gentle kisses on his shoulder wound. Her finger followed the trail of blood on his arm, scooping it up before she playfully decorated her lips with it. Though unsure, Deku felt a surge of passion as she pressed her lips against his, gripping the collar of his mask to deepen their connection. The taste of iron mingled with her natural fragrance, intoxicating him. He groaned softly, his hand exploring her neck and back. As he caressed her shoulder, his thumb brushed over the stained skin, and he felt her breath hitch in response. Breaking their kiss, he traced his thumb over her lips, pulling her lower lip down gently before closing the distance again. He felt her thighs wrap around his waist as he pressed against the wall, one arm protectively cradling her lower back while the other guided her down to the floor. She shivered at the cool touch beneath them, her hips moving against him as her legs locked around his waist. Her hands tangled in his hair, and their lips danced together, lost in the rhythm of their bodies. Deku held one of her hips, drawing her closer. In response, her back arched, and he felt her warmth against him. They broke their kiss, his breath warm against her neck as she called out his name, needing him. She clutched his hair and rolled them over, straddling him as he lay on the floor. Her fingers slid down his neck, teasing his skin as she pushed off his chest, raising her body with a playful giggle and a blush. She tilted her head, suggesting an idea they both understood. Deku's emerald eyes softened under the moonlight that illuminated her. He raised his blood-stained arm, cupping her cheek and brushing his thumb under her eyelid, where a tear had slipped earlier. He whispered his agreement, feeling a connection between them. The shadows in the empty, cold apartment concealed their passionate moments, while the moonlight shining through the broken window highlighted their bond. Later, Kurojiiri spoke to All for One, expressing concern about a young boy. All for One reassured him, emphasizing the importance of training them young to unlock their potential. Kurojiiri took young Midoriya to a discreet location, holding his hand as they walked through the sewer system. Midoriya, covered in dirt and bloodstains, asked where they were going. Kurojiiri promised him orange juice after their mission, igniting a spark of hope in Midoriya's hollow eyes. He nodded eagerly, determined to win. The scene shifted to a chaotic moment, with Midoriya hyperventilating as he faced a body lying face down in the sewer water, stained red. Suddenly, he shot up in bed, his heart racing as he took in his surroundings. Toga lay beside him, her hair down and his costume acting as a blanket. He whispered to himself, trying to shake off the haunting memories that lingered in his mind. Meanwhile, Dabi noticed Stain entering the room and acknowledged him while watching the news. The report detailed a villain who had fought All Might, describing him as terrifying yet strangely sad. Stain ignored the commentary and inquired about Deku's whereabouts, learning he was with Toga in the building. As Stain prepared to take a nap, he reflected on Deku's confrontation with All Might, while Dabi casually mentioned the need for cash. Weeks later, the scene shifted to a training session where Deku practiced his moves, executing a series of slashes and dodges, honing his skills for the challenges ahead. He didn't dodge quickly enough, and the blade grazed his hip. Izuku's blood ignited in green flames before Stain could consume it. Stain observed the wound, noting that it was taking longer to heal. Izuku knelt, clutching his ribcage as the flames flickered weakly, searing the injury. Stain questioned whether Izuku had lost his convictions and will, bringing his sword down toward Deku's neck, the cold steel brushing against his skin. Izuku looked up, swallowing hard before grinning. He declared that he would be a hero, even if society refused to acknowledge him. With that, Stain retracted his blade, his killer intent dissipating as he walked to the edge of the roof, stating they needed groceries. Izuku blinked in surprise, agreeing to fetch Toga and Dabi. Stain leaped off the building with the grace of a spider. Dabi, Toga, and Deku strolled down a dim alley. Toga hummed happily to the music from her headphones, dressed in her regular school outfit. Dabi wore a casual black hood, while Izuku sported a loose green turtleneck that hung around his neck and black cargo shorts paired with his signature red boots. Dabi expressed his frustration about their dwindling cash, noting that they had only received half of their payment from broker, as All Might was still alive. He calculated that it was barely enough for a week's worth of expenses. Dabi's concern was evident as he shot a glare at the other two. Izuku was lost in thoughts about the recent sports festival, while Toga entertained herself by playing with a stray cat. They exited the alley and merged with the bustling city crowd, entering a grocery store to gather essentials. The sight of food made their stomachs grumble. Izuku wandered the aisles with a shopping basket hanging from his elbow, picking up hygiene supplies. Toga had vanished, likely off to steal what she needed. Suddenly, a bottle rolled to his feet. He bent down to pick it up and noticed it was a bottle of lavender body wash. Toga approached him, wearing an uneasy grin and ruffling her hair, asking for it back as it was her favorite. Izuku handed it to her, their fingertips brushing, causing her to smirk. She mentioned that she wasn't usually this clumsy, attributing it to the pressures of her hero internship. Izuku was intrigued to learn that she was a hero in training at UA, a school he admired. As she began to share more about her school, a loud commotion erupted in the grocery store, causing her to pause in concern. Izuku felt a familiar sensation and dropped his shopping cart, rushing out of the store despite her warnings about potential danger. The city night was chaotic. Izuku spotted the numerous, monstrous creatures that filled him with dread. The wind whipped around him as one of the winged numas seized him, its claws digging into his arm and shoulder. It lifted him into the air, and he gritted his teeth, igniting his wound in a desperate attempt to fight back. The emerald flames scorched the numu, forcing it to release him. He plummeted, crashing through a kiosk stand near the grocery store. Struggling to push himself off the ground, he faltered, collapsing face first. His breaths came in ragged gasps, and he felt the weight of despair wash over him, questioning whether he had lost his convictions. A scream pierced the air, drawing his attention. He lifted his head to see the girl from earlier, now in danger as a large numu loomed over her. Panic surged through him as he realized no heroes were present to help. He felt a surge of determination, recalling a conversation with a mentor who had once told him that even in a world filled with heroes, society could label anyone unjustly. He had been encouraged to live his life without letting others dictate his actions. With renewed resolve, Izuku's wound began to heal as he forced himself to rise. He reached into his pocket, pulling out his mask guard and fastening it around his face. He prowled forward, his wound igniting with flames, and his wings unfurled from his back. The girl watched in awe, fear evident in her eyes. Izuku declared his intention to become a hero, his voice muffled by the mask. His wings flared, creating a gust of wind that shattered nearby windows. As he faced the numu, he executed a powerful kick, increasing the flame pressure of his wings to launch the creature away from the girl. It crashed into a building, debris flying everywhere. Izuku landed protectively in front of her, his determination shining through as she gazed at him with wide, mesmerized eyes. Green flames crackled around him like cherry blossom embers. His emerald wings were illuminated by the ominous night sky, marking him as a savior. He raised his knuckle to his face and clenched it, determined to protect someone this time. Dabi left the grocery store, blending in with the crowd while holding a brown shopping bag close to his chest. He thought about how convenient it was to make some cash, having taken food and money from the register. Suddenly, he noticed the flying numu had stolen his groceries. He sprinted down an alley, refusing to lose out on a free meal. He leaped onto a dumpster, kicked off, and grabbed the ladder of a fire escape. Climbing swiftly, he reached the roof and continued his pursuit of the numu. With a powerful jump, he landed on the next building, rolling upon impact to maintain his momentum. Breathing evenly, he ran across the rooftops, focusing on the numu. He created a small blue flame in his palm, aiming carefully with his other arm. He threw it like a javelin, hitting one of its wings and causing it to plummet. Dabi lunged off the building, landing on the numu. He pried open its claw grip on his supplies, snatching his food with one arm. With a smirk, he unleashed his flames, sending the numu crashing to the ground in a blaze of blue fire. Dabi landed on the building across the street, which was now ablaze. A helicopter hovered above, shining its light on him, but he waved them off, disappearing into the shadows as they continued their search. The news chopper thudded loudly, scanning the rooftops, but he had successfully hidden his presence. Dropping his hood, Dabi blended back into the panicking crowd, confident that the others would manage without him. His flames swirled around him like a blossoming rose, reaching out to those inferno-feathered wings. Izuku was using his speed to dodge the heavy fists of the numu, every blow a gust of hot wind against his skin. He took a quick leap step and punched the numu in the gut, but it barely flinched. The creature lifted its hands and brought down a double axe handle, slamming Izuku to the ground. He coughed, blood escaping his lips as he bounced back up. The numu grabbed his skull, lifting him effortlessly. Izuku's eyes glowed with a fierce determination as he blocked the numu's fist with his boot. He kicked off with his other foot, breaking free from its grip and slamming his foot into its jaw. Gritting his teeth, he realized he couldn't do as much without his iron soles. The Numu retaliated, slamming its hand into Izuku's gut and sending him tumbling aside. As the Numu prepared to continue its assault, a girl with wide eyes stood nearby, recognizing Izuku as the one who had fought All Might. She felt a surge of courage and attacked the Numu with her quirk, demanding it to get away from him. Izuku, forcing himself back up, was shocked to see someone standing up for him. His vision blurred, but he recognized her as the girl from the store, the one he had tried to protect. Despite his wobbling legs, Izuku took a step forward. The Numu, ignoring the girl's attacks, charged straight for him. She bit her lip, feeling helpless to stop it. But Izuku clenched his hands with resolve, crying out his determination as he bolted at the Numu in a final blitz. The Numu brought down its fist, hitting Izuku hard. He didn't back down, pushing forward and hardening his knuckles. He smashed them into the Numu's jaw, finally eliciting a cry of pain from the creature. They both stumbled back, but Izuku stood his ground, his wings burning as brightly as his eyes. His wings condensed into high temperature as the Numu tackled him. The wings speared straight through the Numu, one blade stabbing into its brain and the other piercing through its chest. Izuku increased his flames until the Numu was reduced to ashes. He landed on his feet, fatigue nearly shattering them, but his wings supported his weight. He turned to the girl, who was still in shock, and she asked him about his fight with All Might. He tried to leap away, but stumbled forward, almost falling. She was about to run to him when sirens blared, and professionals arrived on the scene. She was swept into the chaos, answering questions while glancing around for Izuku, who had already vanished. In the sewers, Toga dragged Izuku along, asking about the girl he had protected. He replied that he didn't even know her name. They arrived home to find Dabi lounging on the couch. He pointed to the kitchen, indicating there was food available, and joked about hoping he hadn't poisoned it. Izuku, concerned about Stain, asked if he was home. Dabi pointed upstairs, mentioning that Stain had been brooding since the news. Izuku wondered how the news of the Numu attack would affect Stain, settling into a ripped leather chair while Toga drooled over Dabi's cooking. Dabi smirked, revealing that they were now referred to as the hero killer disciples. News reports confirmed the attack on Hosu, identifying the monsters as Numu, the same species that had attacked All Might during the USJ event. The heroes who took them down included the hero killer, an unidentified female, and 2 fire quirk users, who were initially assumed to be allies of the League of Villains, but their actions suggested otherwise. The connection between the hero killer and the female accomplice was confirmed, as she was seen assisting another villain. A security camera captured an image of her helping the winged fire user escape before the heroes could respond to the emergency. Questions arose about whether villains had truly saved the day, and the situation remained unclear as reports continued to pour in. What was evident was the link between the League of Villains and the hero killer along with his followers. Dabi turned off the TV with a smirk, amused by the idea of villains saving the day. He rolled over on his couch, ready to catch some sleep, contemplating how this would challenge the hero's credibility. Meanwhile, Toga had indulged herself in Dabi's food to the point of feeling unwell. She groaned, claiming she might have food poisoning, while Dabi smiled, feeling a sense of karma. On a rooftop, Deku sat at the edge, with Stain perched nearby, both gazing out over the city. Deku felt a surge of pride as he reflected on having saved someone. He raised his fist in determination, expressing that not knowing her name made the act even more significant. He had acted simply because it was the right thing to do. Stain, though silent, wore a small, proud smile that quickly faded. As the sun began to rise, Deku yawned, and Stain turned to him, asking if he was tired. Deku admitted to feeling a little sleepy but couldn't bring himself to say more, knowing Stain wasn't one for sentimentality. Stain acknowledged that it had been a while since they had seen the sunrise, recognizing its significance for both of them. Deku was the only person Stain had chosen to save, though he still questioned why he had done so. The kid needed guidance, even if Stain felt he might not be the best choice. Deku's nervous smile transformed into sincerity as he engaged Stain in conversation about why he had killed the Numu. Stain simply stated it had been in his way, prompting an awkward laugh from Deku. They enjoyed each other's company as the day began. Deku donned his villain hero outfit for his first patrol, while Dabi and Toga opted out, remaining true to their villainous nature but understanding his motivations. He leaped off a roof, soaring across the city, exhilarated by the thrill of helping others, even if it meant being labeled a villain. He was determined to embrace his identity. Suddenly he heard a child scream and glanced down into an alley. A little girl with a horn on her forehead was fleeing from a man wearing a beak-shaped mask. Deku seized the opportunity, leaping down with his wings ignited, gliding gently toward her. The little girl hesitated at the sound of crackling fire and gentle flapping. She looked up, her view obscured by the sun, but she could see a shadow with emerald wings. Deku reassured her, landing in front of her just as she ran into his arms, seeking safety. He was taken aback. It was the first time someone had looked to him as a beacon of hope. He noticed the girl was covered in bandages. The masked man raised an eyebrow, questioning if Deku was a hero. He explained that the girl, Eri, had a rare medical condition that required numerous surgeries, leaving her with scars she wished to hide. Deku, feeling a sense of unease, questioned the man's intentions. The man offered to show Eri's medical records, reaching into his jacket, while Eri's fear became palpable as she broke free from Deku and ran back to him. Deku was left stunned, realizing the girl was terrified. The masked man dismissed the situation, telling Eri it was time to go home, and he turned to retreat into the shadows of the alley. Deku stood up, determined not to abandon her. He took a step forward, clenching his fists. Just then, Ida Tenya appeared, towering over Deku with anger in his eyes. He accused Deku of being one of Stain's disciples and vowed to never forgive him. Deku's heart raced as he turned back to the alley, seeing the little girl leaving with the masked man. He shouted in despair, feeling helpless. Ida, believing Deku would only cause more suffering, positioned himself to block Deku's path, declaring he would not allow any more harm to come to innocent lives. Eri looked back, her hope fading as she realized the hero was detaining Deku. Conflicted, she wondered if anyone would ever come to save her. Deku pleaded with Ida, insisting that Eri needed help, but Ida refused to listen, dismissing him as a villain. Ida launched himself off a wall, aiming to strike Deku from above. Deku's thoughts raced, affirming he was not a villain as he was knocked down, crashing onto garbage bags. Struggling to rise, he stared down the alley, but the masked man and Eri were gone. Despair washed over him as he realized he could have saved her. Ida stood tall, introducing himself as Ingenium, vowing to avenge his brother. Deku's eyes reflected his hollow despair, lamenting that he had been so close to saving her, feeling the weight of his own pain. Ida, sensing the intensity of Deku's emotions, grew slightly anxious. Deku stood with his body hunched forward, almost ghost-like, his arms limp and his eyes vacant. He felt a deep despair as he thought about his failures. He clutched his forehead, overwhelmed by the weight of his thoughts. He believed he had become a villain, feeling that heroes alone had the right to protect others. He lamented that he couldn't save her and that villains had no place in protection. Ida took a step back, surprised by how quickly Deku's mentality had deteriorated. He recalled the two people Deku had been about to confront and wondered what had driven him to this point. He realized that something deeper was at play. Deku's voice echoed in his mind, filled with anguish as he declared that heroes always stop villains and villains always stop heroes. He questioned his own identity and that of Ida's, feeling the weight of revenge consuming him. As Deku's frustration peaked, he dropped his hands and struck his head against the wall, insisting that he would never hurt his mother. Ida's concern grew as he noticed Deku's tears. Deku just wanted to save her, like a true hero. Ida shook off his pity, reminding himself that Deku was following a path of darkness. He prepared to act, his legs ready to propel him forward. In a blur, he spun and attempted a kick, but it missed as Deku's intense green eyes locked onto him. In an instant, Deku vanished, leaving Ida searching for him in confusion. Suddenly, Ida felt a grip on the back of his head, and before he could react, he was slammed against the wall. Deku dragged him across the surface, causing his mask to shatter. Ida was thrown out into the street, landing hard on the pavement. He struggled to regain his composure, realizing the gravity of the situation. He had underestimated Deku's strength and ferocity. As Ida lay on the ground, he felt the impact of Deku's fists, each blow driving him deeper into the asphalt. He could feel the world fading as he struggled to stay conscious. The chaos around them escalated as cars honked and pedestrians fled, calling for heroes to intervene. Deku paused, hearing the cries of the citizens. His eyes cleared for a moment, and he looked around, realizing the fear he had instilled in them. Confused and horrified, he stumbled back, his hands stained with Ida's blood. He desperately insisted to himself that he was not a villain and ran back into the alley, tears streaming down his face. The scene shifted to a street camera capturing the aftermath of the confrontation. Deku was seen relentlessly attacking Ida, his knuckles marked with blood. The news speculated on his motives, suggesting he was mimicking a notorious villain. Viewers were left to ponder his actions. Dabi, watching the news, expressed his disbelief at Deku's transformation. He noted that the boy was merely seeking revenge, a copycat of Ingenium. Toga, excited by the spectacle, found herself drawn to Deku's unstable state, reveling in the chaos. Dabi, annoyed by Toga's enthusiasm, decided to leave for reconnaissance, knowing that the authorities would be on high alert after Deku's actions. He pondered visiting a heroine in training, curious about her reaction to him. Meanwhile, Gran Torino and All Might discussed the troubling events. All Might reflected on his encounter with Deku, feeling a strange urge to save him despite the violence. Gran Torino cautioned him, reminding him of Deku's actions against Ida, but All Might remained resolute in his belief that there was still hope for the boy. As the conversation continued, All Might's determination to save those in need shone through, embodying his role as the symbol of peace. In the midst of all this, Izuku thrashed around in an empty apartment, desperate for an escape from the turmoil within him. He didn't do it. He clutched his head in anguish, haunted by memories of blood and the hero's shattered face. He cried out, overwhelmed with despair, insisting that he had been trying to save her. But deep down he felt the weight of the truth: he was not a hero. He couldn't save her. His wings burst forth, crashing through the building as debris fell around him. He swayed, his legs trembling under the pressure of his emotions. His wings became wild and uncontrollable. What he wanted was irrelevant, it was his true nature that mattered. A villain. He shouted in desperation, his eyes rolling back as he lost control. He called out to the city, pleading for the truth to stop. But the truth was inescapable. Lies were merely a comforting filter, and he longed for the solace of calling himself a hero. Izuku stumbled back, gasping for breath as he dropped his arms. Tears streamed down his face, and his wings enveloped him in a somber embrace. He had hurt someone, and now all he could see in the eyes of those around him was a monster. He slumped against the wall, fear gripping him as he tried to escape. He tripped, landing on the cold, hard ground. Curling into a ball, he whispered to himself that he wasn't a villain, wishing for the comfort of his wings to be real. Alone, he hugged himself tightly, crying himself to sleep, questioning why this was happening to him. Toga, with wide eyes, watched from a distance, her heart racing. She had seen everything unfold. Stain appeared beside her, his expression grim as he noted that Izuku needed rest. He had never been stable, and they needed to escape the society that had suffocated them. They were going camping, and he intended to cleanse the world of those he deemed fake before they left. Toga was only half listening, her focus solely on Izuku. She knelt before him, tucking her legs back as she spoke softly, acknowledging the struggles of life. She saw him react as his wings slowly retracted, sealing the wounds on his back. Gently, she cradled his head in her lap, stroking his cheek and running her fingers through his hair. She understood his pain in a way that society never could. It was okay, he could be her hero. But then she saw the news, and her heart sank. The man on the screen was the one who had caused her so much turmoil. She rushed to the balcony, feeling sick as she recalled her thoughts of him being a decent person after he saved her. She wiped her mouth, grappling with the memories of that day. Her friend noticed her distress and asked if something was wrong. She remained hunched over the railing, struggling with her emotions, feeling the weight of the past. She couldn't talk about that day in Hosu, especially after Ida had been attacked. The anger surged within her, and she felt her grip on the railing tighten. Izuku awoke, rubbing his head against the soft pillow. He turned over, blinking at the blurry figure of Toga sleeping beside him. The city was alive outside, and he leaned over to kiss her forehead before quietly leaving. On the roof, he stretched, preparing to run. But Dabi's voice stopped him, questioning his intentions. Dabi leaned against the door, looking weary. Izuku hesitated, explaining that he was going out. Dabi raised an eyebrow, skeptical of his plans to play the hero. Izuku mentioned a little girl he had seen, but Dabi warned him that it was late and he needed to be cautious. He reminded Izuku that he had acted like a villain, and sometimes it was necessary to take a step back and recover. Dabi turned to leave, promising to look into the situation with the girl. Standing alone on the roof, Izuku felt the wind whip around him as he gazed at the skyline. He suddenly remembered Toga and rushed back inside, descending the stairs to find her. The air was cold and empty, and guilt gnawed at him as he approached her room. He noticed something glinting on the floor, a knife belonging to Toga. He picked it up, wondering why she never left it behind. He entered her room, carefully placing the knife in a wall to remind him to return it to her later. Laying beside her, he tucked his arm under her head and pulled her closer, feeling her warmth against him as she nestled into his chest. She snored softly, half asleep, playfully nudging him with her wrist against his chest. He agreed, pulling her closer as they drifted off to sleep together. The forest buzzed with the sounds of nature surrounding them. Izuku gazed up at the trees, which obscured parts of the clear, sunny sky. Dabi yawned, inadvertently stepping on a twig. Toga hummed to herself as she delicately plucked the wings of a butterfly. Stain trudged ahead as they ascended toward the peak of the terrain, following the sound of a waterfall upstream. They arrived at a secluded cliff that overlooked the vast forest below. Setting up camp, they established a base of operations with a tent spacious enough for everyone, a fold-out table and chairs. Izuku and Toga decided to share a separate tent, while Stain rolled out his sleeping bag at the edge of the cliff, distancing himself from the others. Dabi, lacking any sleeping gear, climbed the tallest tree nearby and settled on a sturdy branch. He looked up at the melancholic night sky, appreciating the quiet. The stars twinkled above him, and he found himself feeling sleepy. With a contented sigh, he folded his arms behind his head and closed his eyes, drifting off to sleep. They had spent time away from the bustling city. Izuku was out gathering wood, using the time to collect his thoughts. His green eyes sparkled with understanding, though they held a hint of sadness from the honesty he faced. As he wandered toward a rocky cliff, he took in the breathtaking view. Sitting at the edge, his legs dangled freely, and he leaned back on his arms, inhaling the fresh scent of nature. It was peaceful. Suddenly, a voice called out, startling him. A young boy appeared, demanding to know what he was doing. Izuku turned to the voice, surprised. He quickly apologized, but felt compelled to ask about the boy's parents, concerned for his safety. The boy lowered his hat to shield his eyes, defiantly stating that it was none of Izuku's business and telling him to leave. Izuku flinched, realizing he had struck a nerve. He composed himself and pressed on, asking if anyone was looking after him. He couldn't just walk away. The boy, gritting his teeth, snapped back, questioning if Izuku thought he was some kind of hero. Izuku felt a moment of vulnerability, glancing at his palm where a bloody glove had once been. He clenched his fist, letting the memory fade, and turned his gaze toward the isolated forest. "No, I don't think I can be," he admitted softly, his expression reflecting a quiet acceptance of reality. The wind blew gently, causing his bangs to sway, momentarily obscuring his eyes as he contemplated his thoughts. The boy, confused, furrowed his brow and offered a reluctant invitation to stay. Izuku relaxed his shoulders and introduced himself as Deku, omitting his real name. "Koda," the boy mumbled in response. "Nice to meet you, Koda," Izuku replied, a grin spreading across his face as they began to bond. As the sun set, Izuku mentioned that a group of hero students would be arriving soon. Is that a bad thing? Koda asked. It's going to cramp my style, Izuku chuckled lightly. Koda, annoyed, told him to be quiet, but Izuku continued to laugh, prompting Koda to pout and insist he leave. Izuku apologized, and they resumed their light-hearted conversation. Meanwhile, Toga was filled with excitement as she peeked through the bushes. A group of kids had just arrived at a camp she had been observing, and she felt a thrill at the prospect of alleviating her boredom. Her eyes narrowed as she spotted a familiar figure walking alongside the other students. It's her, the one who was with Izuku, she thought, retreating into the shadows, her mind racing with anticipation. Izuku stood before Koda, his heart racing as he faced a towering villain. The villain had mentioned that Toga had discovered a camp full of UA students, but he dismissed the idea of targeting them. He was more interested in the Wild Pussycats, a renowned hero team, and there were rumors about one of them wanting to settle down, which he found troubling. The villain expressed his disdain for heroes who stray from their path, while another villain noted the presence of intruders, suggesting they had the same intentions as Stain. Their true target was Pixie Bob, and Izuku was instructed to stay put during their attack. Dabi, feeling the tension rise, leaped back from his perch. The League of Villains was testing his patience, and he could feel the unsettling presence of a creepy member nearby. The villain known as Moonfish was now engaged with Dabi, making unsettling comments about his flesh. Dabi swiftly dodged an attack, rolling to regain his footing. He played with fire, careful not to set the peaceful forest ablaze. Moonfish hung above him like a spider, and Dabi, maintaining his bored expression, unleashed a burst of flames. Moonfish evaded the attack, using his sharp teeth to navigate the air. Dabi continued to maneuver through the trees, launching fire as he went. Moonfish retaliated, aiming his fang at Dabi, but it struck a tree instead, leaving Dabi with a smirk as he continued to taunt his opponent. As the battle escalated, Dabi activated a powerful propulsion, knowing that Moonfish would not be able to evade the impending collision. A surge of heat erupted, and Dabi landed gracefully, watching as Moonfish was consumed by flames. Suddenly he noticed Uraraka and Tsuyu nearby, trying to escape. Dabi, with a teasing tone, made light of the situation, enjoying the discomfort he caused. Uraraka froze, realizing that her former friends were now villains. Tsuyu tried to pull her away, but Uraraka's expression revealed her inner turmoil. Uraraka confronted Dabi, her voice trembling as she expressed her feelings of betrayal. Memories flooded her mind of the times she had spent with her friends, now turned foes. Dabi, taken aback by her emotional response, felt an unfamiliar pang of guilt. As Dabi reached for Uraraka, his fingers brushed against her skin, and for a moment, they shared a look filled with conflicting emotions. Just then, Tsuyu intervened, pulling Uraraka away from danger. Dabi watched them escape, his expression a mix of amusement and something deeper. Izuku, feeling a surge of determination, spread his wings protectively around Koda, vowing to keep him safe. Koda questioned Izuku's intentions, reminding him that he was not a hero. Izuku's eyes glinted with resolve as he declared that one does not need to be a hero to do what is right. He clenched his fist, vowing to protect Koda at all costs, even as the weight of his own struggles loomed over him. The scene shifted to a grim reality, where a figure lay battered and broken, their life hanging by a thread, a stark reminder of the consequences of their choices. His dark green bangs were stained with his own blood. A hollow eye socket gazed up at the constellations, and a thought crossed his mind. Was he dying? He felt a wave of fear wash over him, a familiar sensation that had always haunted him. Suddenly, someone bumped into him. He attempted to apologize, but his voice came out distorted, as if the world around him was blending together. The bustling city continued its relentless pace, and he felt lost in the crowd. He tried to speak again, but his words echoed back to him, unheard by those around him. They pushed past him, and he felt overwhelmed, stumbling and falling onto the unforgiving sidewalk. A shadowy hand reached out to comfort him, and he instinctively reached for it. "Bartender-san," he murmured, seeking solace. A deep breath filled his lungs, and he coughed, feeling alive again. "Oh, you're back," a voice commented, almost teasingly. I was wondering if I had gone too far again. How many times has it been? 2? 13? 27? He didn't want to be here anymore. He had been in the city, surrounded by people. That was right, he was alive. All, he managed to say. HM? What is it? He felt a surge of frustration. It will save me. With a smile, is that right? How amusing. He wished the voice would stop. All might would come for him. He believed that. He could save everyone, even him. His shackles felt heavy, weighing down his hollow body. Was he even breathing? Oh, what's this? Passing out again? It hasn't even been a minute. Or could it be that this time, you're fading away? Finding isolation and solitude? The only comfort in the depths of your mind? Do you even know where you are? Where was he? Had he been fighting someone? He had been protecting someone, hadn't he? He was scared. He didn't want to die. What would happen to him? He didn't want to disappear. Hey, your coffee's getting cold. His empty gaze lifted from the table he hadn't realized he was staring at. It was her. She held her cup with both hands, curled up in her chair, staring out the window. He shared her view, a pure light with nothing beyond it. He turned back to her. You don't even know my name, she mused, sipping her drink. How could you know what I would choose? Are you all right? He asked, recalling the last moments before his fight with Numu, when it had shattered his mask. Yup, Peachy. I'm living inside the final thoughts of a dying hero. Man, you didn't even try to get to know me. Am I dying? He wondered, thinking of Koda. Yeah, your quirk has stopped activating. Don't you remember? She nodded towards his memories. His right eye widened. What? He charged straight for Muscular, who smirked at him. Oh, I can't wait. Izuku barely raised his arm in time. Muscular was fast, and he felt the impact as his knuckles struck him, sending him crashing into the mountain wall. He stifled a cry of pain, clutching his twisted arm. Flames ignited, healing him. Muscular straightened up. What's this? You can heal? Seriously? I get to have some fun. Izuku stood, gripping his repaired arm. He glanced at Koda, who was still there. Why wasn't he running? He flinched as Muscular lunged at him. He leaped, flapping his wings, and Muscular crashed into the crater left by Izuku. You're fast, Muscular taunted, disappearing from view. But I'm faster. Izuku gasped, feeling Muscular right behind him. Oi, can I pluck these? Muscular reached for his wings. Izuku's green eyes filled with disbelief. He desperately clawed at Muscular's hands. Stop it! Muscular pressed down on Izuku's back, gripping his wings tightly. What's the matter? I thought you were going to protect him. Why are you flying away? He ripped at the wings, slamming Izuku down onto the ground. Izuku cried out, feeling the burn of his shirt as blood seeped through. Muscular stood over him as Izuku struggled to rise. He was faster and stronger. He had taken away his wings. Kill him. You actually overcame your instability. What a turning point for you, huh? I guess your resolve wasn't half bad, she teased, and for some reason, it comforted him. If this was the end, spending it with the only person he had saved would be a peaceful send-off. Kill him. He's just a filthy villain. Burn him to ashes. Izuku pressed his palm to his forehead, trying to focus. I won't. His legs stumbled, but he opened his eyes, staring down Muscular. Flames erupted from his back, forming a protective armor of emerald fire. Koda, run away, he shouted, not taking his eyes off Muscular. Koda stumbled back, falling. But I can't just leave you. Don't worry. I'll be fine. Just go. Oh man, I love it. I can keep pounding you down. You're just sacrificing your body as a punching bag for that kid, right? Muscular was eager for the fight. Izuku's flames swirled around him, becoming a thruster that propelled him forward. I'm not sacrificing anything. Come at me, kid. Muscular enhanced his muscles, preparing to strike. Izuku zigzagged, skimming his shoes on the ground, breaking into blinding speed. Muscular swung, but his aim was off. Izuku appeared before Muscular, who threw a punch in anticipation. I missed. A red boot came crashing down in a front flip. Muscular was taken by surprise. That actually tickled. He tightened his grip, capturing Izuku's foot. Now you can't run. Izuku gasped, unable to use his flames to maneuver. He crossed his arms to block Muscular's incoming fist, but his guard was easily broken. His head rocked back and blood spilled from his nose. He hung limply, trapped against Muscular's shoulder. "What's the matter, kid? That was just a warm-up." "Huh." Muscular's eyes widened as he saw Izuku glare back, signaling he could take another hit. "Ha! How about some more power?" His arm bulged with muscle fibers. "Here's another one." Before impact, Izuku twisted his body, unleashing his flames straight at Muscular's arm. Instinctively, Muscular released his grip and tossed Izuku aside with his free arm, narrowly avoiding the flames. That flame looked far more dangerous than the wings Izuku had displayed earlier. He rolled on the ground, catching himself with a flame-propelled backflip and landing on his feet. Deku huffed heavy breaths, feeling the weight of the situation. He realized he had been doing everything he could to survive, while his opponent barely seemed to break a sweat. A glance back at Koda revealed the boy was frozen in fear. Muscular thrived in the chaos. He remarked on how close the flames had come to burning him. The thrill of the challenge excited him. Izuku could feel the tension rising as Muscular's muscles bulged, preparing for another attack. Izuku's heart raced as he realized Koda was right behind him. Dodging was no longer an option. In a moment of desperation, he increased his flames, creating a protective wall behind him to shield Koda from the impending impact. The ground shook with a thud, and Koda's eyes burned from the smoke that surrounded their battle. He called out for Deku, but the emerald flames obscured his view. Izuku, feeling the strain of the fight, urged Koda to run away as he slumped down after Muscular struck him. Muscular taunted Izuku, noting how the boy had used the last of his strength to ensure Koda's escape. He felt disappointed, believing Izuku's quirk had been weak from the start. Izuku struggled to push himself back up, fingers digging into the ground for support. Muscular delivered a powerful kick to Izuku's gut, sending him tumbling toward the edge of a cliff. The arm he had tried to lift now dangled perilously over the abyss below. Muscular's shadow loomed over him as he made a chilling remark about taking Izuku's eye, just as he had taken something from Koda's parents. Izuku felt Muscular's grip tighten on his jaw, and he fought back with all his might, kicking and struggling. But Muscular only seemed to grow more excited by Izuku's resistance, proclaiming that the weak would always be trampled by the strong. As Izuku felt the pressure of Muscular's knee pinning him down, he screamed in agony, feeling the weight of defeat. In a moment of reflection, Izuku thought about his quirk and how it had always felt like it was failing him. He had known deep down that this moment might come, where he would be unable to continue. He pondered why he hadn't simply walked away to live a happier life, but the desire to be a hero had complicated everything. He recalled a past encounter with All Might, where he had been utterly devastated. It was as if his quirk weakened the more he tried to prove himself. As he lay there, he wondered if it had all been worth it. Had he saved anyone at all? He felt a sense of loss for those he was leaving behind, including Toga, Dabi, and Stain. In a moment of clarity, he realized he would soon be just another memory. "Koda, if you can hear me, please run straight for camp. I'm sorry I don't know where your secret spot is. Just don't come looking for me. I'm sorry I wasn't as good as your parents, but I did my best." He felt a surge of memories flooding back, realizing he was experiencing everything for the first time. He sat up, feeling a hollow sensation in his head and touching around his eye socket. Through the emerald flames, he spotted Koda, cowering in fear. He remembered the boy and the urgency of the situation. His eye erupted with a final flood of memories, all the pain etched into him. Muscular turned, surprised to see Izuku still standing. He taunted the boy, eager to take his other eye. Izuku, feeling a newfound strength, stood tall, his wings regrowing like winter roses. He prepared for the fight ahead, determined to turn the tide. As Muscular lunged, Izuku moved with agility, flipping over him and striking with his wings. He landed gracefully, contemplating the power he had yet to fully control. Muscular, enraged, attacked again, but Izuku was ready. He used his wings to shield himself and countered with a series of kicks, each one landing with precision. The battle intensified, with both combatants moving in a flurry of strikes and counterattacks. Cherry blossom embers fell around them as they fought fiercely. Izuku knew he had to ensure that he could still stand against Muscular. Forward, ready to prove that he was not done yet. Izuku felt a surge of power as he confronted Muscular, who taunted him from the edge of the cliff. With a fierce determination, Izuku soared upward, his flaming wings igniting around him. He looked down at Muscular, who was bracing himself for the impending attack. Izuku unleashed a torrent of emerald flames that cascaded down like a storm. The flames struck Muscular, leaving him gasping for breath, his body marked by burn wounds. Muscular struggled to comprehend the intensity of Izuku's flames, realizing they were far more powerful than before. "You think you can intimidate me?" Muscular growled, but his confidence was waning as he faced the reality of his injuries. Izuku, now grounded on the cliff, stared at the dissipating smoke, his resolve unwavering. As the smoke cleared, Muscular's labored breathing filled the air. His muscles were weakened, and he could barely stand. Izuku took a step forward, his focus on Koda, who was still present, watching in disbelief. Izuku's heart was heavy as he approached Koda, who was struggling to process the events unfolding before him. The young boy's eyes widened with fear and confusion as he witnessed the aftermath of the battle. Izuku acknowledged Koda's pain. He had only wanted to protect him. But Koda's words cut deep. He felt the weight of the boy's anguish as he expressed his hatred for both heroes and villains. Ignoring Koda's cries, Izuku's mind raced. He had to act. He turned to Koda, urging him to take action. The boy's eyes flickered with uncertainty, but Izuku pressed on, encouraging him to save his aunt from the looming threat. Koda's resolve began to crumble as he pleaded for help, tears streaming down his face. Izuku felt a pang of empathy, knowing the burden of loss all too well. He took a deep breath, his expression hidden beneath his bangs, and prepared to take flight once more. As Izuku ventured deeper into the forest, he followed the trail of blue flames, suspecting that Dabi had trapped the pussycats. He landed silently on a branch, spotting Mandalay and Tiger in the distance. They were fleeing, carrying Pixie Bob, who was injured. Izuku's instincts kicked in as he realized the danger they were in. He approached them cautiously, making his presence known. Mandalay recognized him from the news, her expression shifting from fear to suspicion. Izuku reassured them that he was not aligned with the League of Villains. He had come to help, but the tension was palpable as Tiger confronted him, anger boiling over. Despite the hostility, Izuku remained calm, knowing that any further provocation would only escalate the situation. He dodged Tiger's attacks with agility, his mind racing as he strategized his next move. As the confrontation intensified, Izuku felt the heat of the moment. He had to protect Pixie Bob and ensure their escape. With a swift maneuver, he unleashed a burst of flames, creating a distraction that allowed him to break free from Tiger's grasp. With determination in his eyes, Izuku landed beside Pixie Bob, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The battle was far from over, but he was prepared to fight for those who needed him. She was bombarding him with deceptive strategies that would linger in his subconscious, meant to mislead him. She was on the offensive, and out of all of them, she was the fastest. She insisted she was trying to get him to safety, warning him that he would die if he stayed. He reached out his hand, hoping to connect, but she breezed right past him, a swift motion that left a mark across his stomach. She declared she would never leave with him. Izuku winced, feeling the sting of her words. Lies could hurt deeply, and he realized that knowledge and experience were two different things. He offered to save the others as well, testing a lie for the first time, wondering if it would affect her. Mandalay gritted her teeth, ready to pounce like a cat. When he mentioned Koda, her demeanor shifted, and she paused, asking where he was. He offered to take her to him, but Tiger, moving with unsteady steps, warned her not to listen to him. Izuku stood firm, asserting that Koda was safe, raising the same hand he had extended to Mandalay. Tiger questioned the truth of his words, suggesting it was a trap. Mandalay refocused, determined that they would escape and reunite with Kota and the other students. They were being targeted by 3 villains and had been separated from everyone else. The situation was dire, with Pixie Bob injured and Ragdoll missing. Mandalay felt the weight of responsibility to guide them through this crisis. In a sudden flurry, Tiger and Mandalay attacked him at the same time. Izuku sighed, preparing himself. Tiger took a leap, while Mandalay lunged at him, but he defended himself with his wing. With a swift motion, his eye glowed with emerald flames as he tossed Tiger aside, the force of his action sending the villain crashing into a tree. Mandalay gasped in shock, unable to comprehend how he had managed to defend himself without using his wing. She noticed a new flame flickering from his lower back, revealing a tail. Tiger hit the ground hard, struggling to rise as he coughed desperately. Izuku turned his attention to the sound, recognizing the urgency. He noted that both Tiger and Pixie Bob were in critical condition. With a cold gaze, he addressed Mandalay, questioning what she would do now that the wild pussycats were facing their end. Mandalay felt a surge of anger and despair, thinking of Kota. She questioned why they were targeting heroes who only wanted to help others. Despite the overwhelming odds, she resolved to keep fighting until the very end. In response, Izuku unleashed his other wing, launching himself at Mandalay. He gripped her throat tightly, lifting her off the ground and soaring above the chaos. She struggled, feeling her consciousness fading as he tightened his hold. In a fleeting moment, her vision blurred. One eye remained wide open while the other closed. He released her, sending her skidding across the ground. Kota rushed to her side, relief washing over him as he found her at the edge of a cliff. Mandalay tried to glare at Izuku, supporting herself with one arm while rubbing her throat with the other. Kota cried on her shoulder, and she felt captivated by the ethereal aura surrounding Deku. His wings scattered gentle feathers over the cliff, the emerald flames contrasting with the dark night. Kota expressed his gratitude to Deku, and both Mandalay and Izuku were taken aback. Izuku chose to ignore the moment, while Mandalay felt a pang of confusion, questioning if they had attacked him unnecessarily. She clutched her throat, then released it, looking back up at him, but he was already gone. Izuku returned to his tent, where his mask guard fell around his neck. He entered, calling for Toga, but found no one there. A note on their sleeping bag caught his attention, written in a disturbing manner, promising a surprise waiting for him at home, adorned with little hearts. He stepped outside, realizing they had gone back to the city. Toga's voice echoed in his mind, taunting him about waiting for his return and expressing her excitement for the surprise she had planned. Meanwhile, Izuku opened the door to their apartment, where Dabi lounged on the couch. Noticing Izuku's demeanor, Dabi raised an eyebrow, sensing something was off. Izuku took off his mask guard and inquired about Toga's whereabouts. Dabi's expression shifted as he noticed the blood around Izuku's eye socket. He asked what had happened, but Izuku's expression remained unchanged as he rubbed his cheek below the missing eye, revealing the weight of his experience. He mentioned that a villain had died, but when Dabi pressed for details, Izuku chose to remain silent, stating he was going to shower. Dabi watched him enter the bathroom, puzzled by the change in his friend. Izuku stared at his reflection in the mirror, grappling with his identity. He touched his features, contemplating the strangeness of life and the meaning behind it all. He returned to the living room, where Dabi tossed him a chrome skull eye patch, instructing him to cover his injury. Izuku complied, though he didn't like the way it felt, planning to remove it when he could. He mentioned Uraraka's name to Dabi, who didn't ask further questions as Izuku left to search for Toga. As he stepped into the hallway, the damp air filled his lungs, and he heard laughter echoing from a nearby room. He approached it, memories flooding back as he recalled the space for the first time. The door was closed, but behind her wild opera was the desperate cry of a voice muffled by tape. The door creaked open, and his steps echoed on the floor. His eyes widened in horrified confusion. There she was. She was tied to the ceiling with rusty shackles, her head hanging down, bangs obscuring her tear-stained eyes. Her body was marked with bruises, and she looked as though she had endured a great ordeal. Toga spun on the heel of her boots to face Izuku, her fangs glinting in the dim light and a manic smile spreading across her face. She exclaimed with excitement, recalling the girl he had saved. She believed he could be her hero again, and her enthusiasm was palpable. Izuku's disturbed gaze shifted to her, a sense of dread washing over him. This was Toga? He managed to calm himself, asking her what she meant. Toga mimicked his calmness, stepping closer with a playful skip. She reached up, pulling his eye patch down to hang around his neck, her eyes narrowing with determination. She demanded to know who had hurt the girl, vowing to take revenge. Only she was allowed to inflict pain on Izuku. She caressed his cheek tenderly. Izuku's eye widened at her affection. This was Toga. He closed his eye, holding her hand against his cheek, assuring her that everything was fine. He raised his head to face her again, questioning why she had done this. "Because you saved her, silly," Toga replied, her smile sincere. Izuku felt a wave of guilt wash over him. He approached her without hesitation, gently slapping her cheek to check if she was still conscious. He prepared to remove the tape from her mouth, pulling it off in one swift motion. She coughed, taking in a deep breath. "Do you know your name?" he asked. "Forget you," she managed to say, her lips bruised. She tried to glare at him, but her eyes struggled to meet his gaze. Deep down, she sensed his genuine concern. She faded in and out of consciousness, questioning whether this was just a hallucination brought on by her torment. Did anyone know where she was? All Might. Izuku gasped and stood tall, reassuring her that she would be okay. He used his quirk to release her from the shackles, and she collapsed, her limbs weak from hanging for so long. He took off his green sweater and draped it over her battered body before lifting her in his arms. "Izuku!" Toga gasped, clutching her knife, realizing she might have a rival. His lips curled into a crooked smile as he tilted his head, thanking Toga for the surprise. He asked if she wanted him to save the girl. Her grip relaxed, and she expressed her affection for him, shifting bashfully on her feet. She giggled, admitting her fears of losing him and apologizing for her actions. "It's okay," he replied, maintaining a forced smile. He suggested they talk when he returned, emphasizing the importance of the conversation. Her eyes widened at the implication, and he walked past her, heading toward the door. She ran after him, waving as he left, whispering her love for him. As Izuku descended the stairs, the floorboards creaked beneath his feet. Toga held his sweater tightly, feeling its warmth. She noticed it was toasty, likely due to his quirk. Another step brought her anxiety to the surface. She shrank back as he turned down the stairwell. "Sorry, I didn't ask for this," she murmured, her trembling eyes causing him to sigh. Her fingers clutched the fabric of his collar as she spoke in a fragile voice, revealing that someone had hurt her with her own quirk. Izuku's back tensed at her words, and he felt a surge of guilt and sorrow as he noticed her bleeding ears. Toga fiddled with the tangled headphones in her hand, resting her elbow on the window. She asked if Izuku had a fan now, her voice filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Izuku struggled to manage the girl in his arms, unsure of where else to go. "She's a UA student, right? The only one I should know is," he began, but was interrupted by hurried footsteps and a startled voice. Uraraka opened the door, her eyes widening in shock at the sight of Jairu in Izuku's arms. "How could you be a villain?" she exclaimed. Izuku, surprised but unfazed, asked how she knew. He ignored her outburst, pushing past her into the apartment. He insisted that Jairu needed help and that he had nowhere else to turn. Uraraka slammed the door behind them, her concern growing as she realized the gravity of the situation. "Everyone is looking for her and Bakugo. He didn't lie then, you and Dabi are villains," she accused. Izuku shook his head, urging her to discuss it later as he focused on the girl shivering in his arms. Uraraka felt guilty for her earlier assumptions and agreed to take Jairu to her room. As they entered, Uraraka pointed to the bed, trying to maintain her composure despite the chaos. She felt overwhelmed, questioning what she should do in this crisis. Her mind raced with thoughts of Toga, Deku, and Dabi, and she clenched the doorknob tightly, her knuckles turning white. Izuku gently laid Jairu down, sliding his arms away from her body. He reassured her that everything would be okay and promised to find her something clean to wear. Jairu's arm shot up, her blood-stained fingers clutching his sweater tightly. "No!" she cried, pulling it close to her. Izuku's eyes widened at her reaction. He hesitated, then agreed to let her keep it if it made her feel more comfortable. He forced a confident smile, trying to ease her fears. "Don't worry. I am here," he assured her. Her eyes reflected the hope he projected, though she struggled to believe it. "Stay," she pleaded. Izuku's smile faltered at her request. He turned to Uraraka, who sighed in resignation. "Fine, but in return, I deserve an explanation about everything," she said, crossing her arms but rubbing her elbow nervously. She was also concerned about the eye patch he wore. "I will," he promised. How did she find out? Dabi had confronted her directly, which left her feeling overwhelmed. Uraraka felt a tear welling up as she hugged her shoulders, calling him an idiot under her breath. Uraraka decided to share what she knew with Jairu. She was unsure how to process everything that was happening. As she tended to Jairu's wounds, Izuku sat quietly in the corner, staring blankly at the wall, fatigue evident in his half-lidded eyes. Uraraka, using the first aid kit and her experience, bandaged Jairu with care. It was challenging to maintain a calm demeanor. Her friend was clearly traumatized. Uraraka bit her lip, thinking about Jairu's quirk. "I'm finally done," she said, trying to sound reassuring. "I know that was tough, Jairu, but you should rest. I'm going to make tea. Would you like some?" Jairu didn't respond. "I'll be back, okay?" Izuku was about to stand and follow her, but Uraraka's breath caught in her throat. She glanced back at him, urging him to stay with Jairu. He nodded in agreement, and she closed the door behind her. Izuku leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees as he watched Jairu. She remained wide awake, her eyes darting around the room, occasionally glancing at him to ensure he was still there. Whenever he shifted, her gaze would snap back to him. "How are you feeling?" he asked, attempting to engage her. She didn't reply but continued to stare at him. "After I leave, I'm sure Uraraka will take you to a hospital." Jairu clutched the sweater tightly, fear etched on her face. I'll be right here," he reassured her. She seemed to relax slightly but remained distant, her expression reflecting the pale light of the moon. It was a lonely sight, reminiscent of a day she would never experience again. "Are you a villain?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Izuku looked down at his hands and knees, uncertain. "I don't know," he admitted. Hearing his response eased some of her anxiety. She felt safe here, didn't she? "My quirk," she murmured, questioning how she could still be a hero. Izuku's emerald eyes shone with a soft light as he looked at her. In front of him stood someone who felt quirkless. "Maybe it will grow back," he suggested, though he wasn't sure if it was a comfort or an insult. His voice was shaky but understanding. "A hole," she replied, her tone echoing her former self, though fear and hurt lingered in her voice. Izuku remained silent, staring out the window. "Sorry," he said quietly. "Yeah," she responded, and they shared a moment of silence. A gentle breeze slipped through the cracked window, brushing against her bare shoulders. She hugged his sweater tighter, burying herself in it and under the blankets. Izuku watched her intently as she lifted her gaze back to him. Their eyes met in the dim light, and she offered a slight smile, a flicker of trust. His cheeks flushed with confusion at the reliance she placed on him. "Your eye?" she asked, recalling that he had both during his fight with Numu. Now, after the last blow, he had lost one. Had he sacrificed it to protect her? "There was a villain who attacked a kid," he began, trailing off and rubbing the empty socket where his eye once was. "So you lost it protecting someone else." "Bummer," she said weakly, a faint cough escaping her. Izuku's eyes widened at the familiar tone she used. "It's the same," he thought, remembering their previous conversation before he vanished. Her cough subsided, and she raised an eyebrow in confusion. Just then, Uraraka opened the door, placing a cup of tea on the small table in the center of the room. Jairu tensed again, clamping her mouth shut. Izuku noticed the fear in her eyes and felt a pang of concern. She had seemed to be improving earlier. "Jairu, do you think you can drink some?" Uraraka asked gently, trying to sound cheerful. Jairu didn't respond, appearing as if she wanted to shrink away behind Izuku's sweater. Uraraka sighed, disappointment evident. Izuku cleared his throat, trying to break the tension. Jairu, is it okay if I call you Jairu?" he asked with a small smile. Jairu peeked out at him with one eye, and he smiled wider to reassure her. "Can you try and drink some?" "Okay," she replied, her voice fragile, lacking its usual rebellious tone. "Jairu," Uraraka said, sitting beside her on the bed and helping her take a sip. Izuku's expression softened as he observed her. Despite her sounding a bit more lively, her body still seemed fragile. He struggled against the guilt rising in his throat. Toga had done this to her. Jairu coughed again, and Uraraka quickly set the cup down. "Rest up, okay?" she said, helping Jairu lay back down. Jairu winced at the touch, and Uraraka's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she finished helping her. Kneeling across from Izuku, Uraraka asked, "What happened to Jairu? What did you do to her?" Izuku's gaze dropped to the table before meeting Uraraka's eyes. "I found her like that. I don't know." Uraraka's knuckles trembled in her lap. "Is that so? Then what were you doing at the training camp? You attacked us with the League of Villains, Deku." Izuku recalled the fight with Muscular. "You're wrong. I don't know why the League was there. I had my reasons. But there was a villain who attacked Koda." "I knew it," she exclaimed softly, then clamped her mouth shut. She glanced back at Jairu, who looked like she was asleep or at least trying to be. "You're the one who saved Koda and Mandalay. Ever since I saw that eye patch, Koda explained everything but never mentioned your name." Her expression turned a bit sad. "Honestly, that's the only reason I haven't called anyone on you. You saved them, just like everyone at the cafe. You're not really that good at being a villain, you know." "I'm not?" he replied, surprised. She tilted her head, her shadowed eyes brightening as she smiled. "But you know, that actually makes me kind of happy. I know I shouldn't feel that way because you're a villain, but it means Dabi has you as a friend. He's scary, but sometimes I feel like he is so alone with nobody to take care of him." Izuku raised his cup of tea. "You're crying," he noted, taking a sip. He remembered Dabi asking for her name. "Huh," she said, realizing. "Sorry, I just. You know." She rubbed her eyes with her arms. "Yeah, I do," he replied, setting his cup down. "You know, Dabi is actually the one who takes care of us." "Really?" she gasped wide-eyed. Izuku began to share stories about his life with Dabi, his oldest and only friend. As he spoke, he noticed Jairu's body tense again at the mention of Toga. He apologized and left her out of the rest of the conversation. They stayed up late, talking until Jairu fell asleep, reassuring her that Deku wasn't going to leave. They heard faint snores and sighed in relief. Uraraka stood at the door, holding the knob. She acknowledged the tension between them, suggesting that he should stay for Jairu's sake despite their opposing roles. Izuku furrowed his eyebrows, unsure. He expressed his concerns about the situation, but Uraraka insisted that Jairu depended on him. She encouraged him to give it his best, offering a thumbs up before quietly closing the door behind her. Jairu suddenly shot up in bed, startled by the sound of the door closing. She looked around, calming down when she saw Izuku still there. He reassured her that he wasn't going anywhere and took a seat on the bed. Kyuka's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and she broke down, burying herself in his embrace. Izuku froze for a moment before wrapping his arms around her, trying to comfort her as she expressed her feelings of loss and despair. As they lay together, Jairu's voice trembled as she spoke of her ruined quirk and stolen dreams, her tears falling silently. Izuku stared at the wall, the moonlight casting shadows in the dim room. The next morning dawned cloudy and gray. Uraraka opened the door to find Izuku sitting on the floor, lost in thought. He quietly stated that Jairu had healed, recalling a moment from the night before when he had healed Toga. Uraraka was surprised and checked on Jairu, who was still asleep. Izuku explained that his quirk had helped, but he noted that Jairu's quirk hadn't regenerated. He prepared to leave, apologizing for the disturbance. Uraraka rushed to him, asking what she should do when Jiraiya woke up, but Izuku remained focused, unsure of what to say. Suddenly, Jiraiya's voice broke through the silence, declaring that she was okay. Both Uraraka and Izuku turned to see her bundled in blankets, a weak smile on her face. Uraraka rushed to her side, concern etched on her features. Izuku observed Jiraiya closely, noting her strength despite her evident suffering. She thanked them, her eyes showing signs of distress. Despite her insistence that she would be fine, Izuku felt a deep concern for her well-being. He nodded, turning to leave, but Jiraiya's voice called out to him, asking if he would be there to save her. Uraraka watched with worry as Jiraiya's words revealed her vulnerability. Izuku's body tensed, and without answering he gently closed the door behind him, wishing her well as he stepped outside. He sighed, looking up at the abandoned building they lived in. Inside, Toga awaited him, tackling him into a hug as soon as he entered their shared apartment. She playfully complained about his delay, tapping her blade against his chest, causing him to wince slightly. Izuku forced a smile, explaining that Uraraka had helped him and that it had taken all night. Toga's eyes lit up with excitement, and she expressed her jealousy over the previous night's events, her imagination running wild with thoughts of heroism. He felt a chill run down his spine and knew they needed to have a serious conversation. Toga, oblivious to his discomfort, eagerly awaited his words. He asked if they were alone, and she confirmed that they were, mentioning that the others were out. With a deep breath, Izuku confronted Toga about her actions, suggesting that they could stop taking lives and live a normal life, free from the conflict of heroes and villains. The atmosphere shifted as Toga approached him, her demeanor changing. She whispered into his ear, her blade grazing his neck, and he felt a surge of unease. Toga's playful nature turned serious as she expressed her indifference toward the roles of heroes and villains, revealing her fascination with the lives of others. Her words hung in the air, leaving Izuku feeling both captivated and unsettled. Izuku often reflected on his past, thinking about where he grew up, the friends he had, and the person he had become. He considered their love lives, too, as he watched the light fade from their eyes. Toga, with a sadistic grin, held him close, brushing her lips against his cheek. She expressed her fascination with the fear she saw in their eyes as they faced death, marveling at the moment. Her laughter softened as she kissed his neck, her knife gliding down his shirt. Unlike others, he had been the only one to look happy in his final moments, which made her fall for him. She recalled how childish and cliché she had been, thinking about burying their bodies together, only for him to wake up unexpectedly. Her excitement had led to an accidental second death. Toga reminisced about their first encounter, her cheeks flushing as she shared the embarrassing story. She sighed, lost in the memory of their romantic escape. But then she questioned him, wondering if he remembered that night. When she mentioned Izuku, her voice trembled with sorrow, realizing he was gone. She dropped her knife, and Izuku's heart sank at her mournful words. He shook his head in disbelief, feeling the weight of loss. Toga clung to him, weeping on his chest, while he struggled to find the right words. She recalled the night he fought All Might, remembering how she had wanted to see him heal. But now, he had not healed, and her voice faltered as she choked on her emotions. Izuku felt a sting in his eye, confusion washing over him. As he instinctively wrapped his arms around her, he whispered an apology. Toga reassured him that he was still her Izuku, but he was uncertain of how to respond to her heartfelt words. She pressed him for details about Izuku's last thoughts, and he hesitated, struggling to articulate the memories that flooded his mind. He recalled Izuku's dream of being a hero, and when he finally spoke, he told Toga that Izuku had been thinking of her. Her eyes lit up with hope, and he forced a smile to comfort her, even as he wished he could have saved her. Later, Izuku stared at the ceiling before his gaze fell on a photo that had slipped into view. It was a picture of a masked man, the one he had seen in the alley with a little girl. Dabi, leaning against the counter, asked if the man looked familiar, and Izuku nodded, recognizing him. Dabi informed him that the man was known as Overhaul, a leader in the Yakuza, who was planning a meeting with the League of Villains. As they discussed their next moves, Toga's playful spirit shone through, and Izuku contemplated how he could get involved. Dabi suggested they build alliances, while Stain preferred to work alone. Toga expressed her thoughts about the pawns in their chess game, comparing them to Izuku and their strategic sacrifices. The atmosphere shifted when the news came on, revealing a shocking image of All Might, now a shadow of his former self. Izuku's heart raced as he processed the sight of his idol in such a state. Toga and Dabi exchanged glances, aware of how much All Might meant to him. Stain, too, felt a mix of surprise and disappointment at the sight of the fallen hero. As the news continued, Izuku's determination surged, and he sprinted out the door, Toga following closely behind. Dabi, intrigued by the potential opportunity, left as well, while Stain remained, contemplating his next move. On the screen, All For One taunted All Might, mocking him as he prepared for the final blow. All Might, battered but resolute, declared he would not falter as the symbol of peace. The tension escalated as All For One unleashed a devastating attack, and in that moment, a green comet soared through the night sky, signaling a turning point in their battle. That flame lingered in the air. All For One, towering above, taunted Izuku, questioning his presence at the fall of a hero. A high-velocity green flame surged toward him, illuminating the sky. Izuku's heart raced as he realized the truth: this was not the All Might he had idolized. The once mighty hero was now weakened, and Izuku's flames intensified in response to the shocking revelation. All For One laughed, reveling in the moment. He noted that this was Izuku's first encounter with All Might in this life cycle, a twist of fate that seemed almost poetic. Izuku's resolve wavered for just a moment, but he quickly redirected his energy, unleashing a shockwave that sent him crashing down before All Might. As Izuku rose, flames danced around him, revealing the true state of All Might. The hero, once a symbol of hope, now appeared fragile. Izuku felt a mix of confusion and admiration, struggling to reconcile the image of the hero he had always looked up to with the reality before him. All Might's blue eyes locked onto Izuku, recognizing the determination within the young hero. Despite the chaos, Izuku stood tall, his breath hitching as he faced the weakened figure of All Might, the one person he had always believed in. All For One interrupted their moment, looming above them with a sinister grin. He challenged Izuku, taunting him about the memories of pain and fear that haunted him. All Might's anger flared as he demanded to know what All For One had done to Izuku. The villain met Izuku's fiery determination with his own strength, laughing as he dismissed the young hero's efforts. He reveled in the memories of Izuku's cries for help, relishing the pain inflicted upon him. All Might's heart sank as he realized the depth of Izuku's suffering. Izuku, fueled by a fierce resolve, declared his independence from All For One's twisted past. With a surge of power, he pushed back against the villain, his confidence shining through the fear that lingered in his eyes. All For One, momentarily taken aback, attempted to regain control, but Izuku was relentless. The battle escalated into a chaotic clash, with Izuku using his wings to strike at All For One. He dodged attacks and retaliated with fierce determination, but the villain's experience and power were overwhelming. All For One's taunts echoed in Izuku's mind, reminding him of the pain that accompanied his quirk. As the fight raged on, Izuku felt the weight of his past pressing down on him. All For One's words cut deep, but he refused to succumb to despair. He fought back against the tendrils that sought to bind him, his flames roaring defiantly. With a final push, Izuku broke free, but the toll of the battle was evident. He plummeted toward the ground, his vision fading as he called out for All Might. Just as hope seemed lost, powerful arms caught him, bringing him to safety. The warmth and reassurance of All Might enveloped him, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. All Might declared his presence, a promise that he would always be there for Izuku. In that moment, Izuku felt the weight of his struggles lift, if only for a brief moment. He remembered everything: the pain, the fear, and the relentless pursuit of freedom from All For One's grasp. The hero's smile ignited a spark within him, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could prevail. Izuku struggled to comprehend the words he had overheard, but he knew they were often shared with Bartender-san, Kurojari. Bartender-san had always been there for him, protecting him, providing for him, celebrating his birthdays, and nurturing his dream of becoming a hero. But that dream had been more of a fantasy, a way to escape his reality. What he truly wanted was to live, and Bartender-san had made that possible. Despite being labeled a villain, to Izuku, he was a savior. As he stirred awake, Izuku groaned, confused about his surroundings. He found himself in a small apartment, bandages wrapped around his body. He was not accustomed to needing medical attention, but he realized he was fully healed. Sitting up on the couch, he took in his environment. The gruff voice broke the silence, welcoming him back. It belonged to an elderly man who informed him that he had been unconscious for several days due to a forced quirk activation that had taken a toll on him. Turning to the voice, Izuku recognized the chibi old man standing beside him, All Might. The hero wore a weak smile, having just defeated All for One. The old man explained that they felt responsible for what had happened to Izuku. All for One had manipulated his life, and in many ways, still had a hold on him. He expressed regret for not investigating further and for letting Izuku down. Gran Torino and All Might sat down with Izuku to discuss the special pardon he had received from the government. Although he had been manipulated by All for One, it did not excuse his past actions. However, during All Might's retirement announcement, he had shared Izuku's story, a tale of tragedy that deserved a chance at redemption. All Might had pleaded for that opportunity. Gran Torino cautioned Izuku that being the symbol of peace had brought him this chance, but it also meant that everyone would be watching him closely. One mistake could lead to dire consequences. Izuku felt overwhelmed by the suddenness of it all, reflecting on how his past lives had been marked as villainous. When Gran Torino questioned him about his use of the word lives, Izuku shook his head, pressing a bandage over his eye socket. He wondered if this life was truly his own now. Gran Torino warned him that the government would be monitoring him closely, and he needed to be extra careful, more so than an ordinary hero. Izuku reassured them that he would maintain his composure, confident that All for One was gone for good. All Might, trying to lighten the mood, encouraged Izuku to embrace his newfound freedom. Gran Torino added that he would be living with him to help him prepare for the challenges ahead. Izuku was puzzled about what he was preparing for, and they informed him it was for his hero permit. His eyes widened with excitement at the thought of finally having a chance to become a hero. Gran Torino reminded him that it wouldn't be easy, as the government and society would scrutinize him as a villain-turned-hero. He emphasized that this was more of a social experiment and asked if Izuku was ready for it. All Might expressed his faith in Izuku, recalling how their previous encounter had shown him the true spirit of a hero. Izuku felt a surge of gratitude for the opportunity he had been given, vowing to live up to the name Deku and clutching his arms over his heart, overwhelmed with emotion. Gran Torino began to train Izuku on hero procedures and crisis management. He also encouraged Izuku to take school exams to assess his knowledge, and to everyone's surprise, he excelled in nearly every subject. Izuku attributed his success to the education he received from Bartender-san, all while asking for a glass of orange juice. Izuku was then asked to provide any information he had on the League of Villains, including Stain, Dabi, and Toga. He shared minimal details about Dabi and Toga, stating that Stain would always adhere to his ideals, and they were likely more informed about him than he was. He provided valuable insights into the League of Villains but remained silent about Bartender-san. All Might and Gran Torino worked diligently to impart as much knowledge and training as they could to Izuku. Finally, the day of the permit exam arrived. Unlike the other candidates, Izuku did not belong to a school. When the exam concluded, the instructor addressed the class, acknowledging Izuku's presence and encouraging them to welcome him to Class 1A. He introduced himself, expressing his eagerness to meet everyone and asking for their support. Later, Izuku received a call. It was Dabi, who seemed surprised that Izuku had not been in touch. Dabi informed him that Toga was missing, which made Izuku uneasy, realizing she might be targeting him. Dabi also warned him that Stain was sticking to his ideals, suggesting that both he and Toga were after Izuku. Dabi offered a heads-up about the League's plans to meet with Overhaul soon and mentioned that he would be attending, knowing that Izuku had enough on his plate. "Don't worry, I'll keep you updated on how it goes. You still want to save the little girl, right?" "Yes, Dabi, but why are you helping so much?" There's more to it than just the girl. Something about the new society he keeps talking about feels off to me, even Stain senses it. It's like Overhaul wants to cleanse more than just heroes. I'll send you the details if you're still planning to go. Thanks. Dabi, one more thing. What? Have you ever wanted to be a hero? Have you been to the cafe lately? He pressed his hands on the desk and abruptly stood, causing a sudden tension in the room. Izuku rose from his bowed position, his eyes meeting those of the other student. How could the two even interact? Sensei, are we going to the training room today? Bakugo's explosive energy filled the air. Bakugo, calm down, Kaminari urged, trying to ease the situation with a wave of his hands. But he felt the animosity in the air. But he's the one who found Jairu, right? He glared at Uraraka for confirmation. She felt the weight of his gaze and clamped her mouth shut, staring down at her desk, her knuckles white over her lap. Aizawa ruffled his hair, his bloodshot eyes reflecting annoyance. He could see the complex thoughts running through most of the students. Kirishima and Bakugo both fought against him at the USJ event. It's only natural to carry resentment and frustration towards Midoriya. He couldn't deny his own bias either. Midoriya brought uncertainty, being a former villain. Actually, that sounds like a good idea. It's why I'm here. I was originally here to explain the hero internships with two of my classmates, but plans changed. No matter, I believe it's best if you learned from my experience anyway. A cheerful lad strolled in with a bright smile. It was Mirio Togata. Aizawa rubbed his dry eyes. Everyone, get into your hero suits, he sighed. Welcome to UA. I hope we get along and work hard together in becoming heroes. I'm Togata Mirio, pleased to meet you. He extended his hand to Izuku, treating him as an equal, not as a villain. Izuku turned to see the student who had entered and calmed the atmosphere. Togata. Mirio? He fully turned his body to him and raised his hand to take Mirio's in a formal handshake. For some reason, Deku felt that this person was already a true hero. His lips lifted slightly. Hello, I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you too. They headed to training room Gamma, where Cementus had already prepared the cement mountain area for training. Most of the students kept their distance from Midoriya. He couldn't help but replay Kaminari's words in his mind. Jairu isn't here. What happened to her? He subconsciously looked left and right for her. Deku, it's great that you're not a villain anymore, right? Uraraka was the only one in class trying to interact with him, though she was hesitant. Most of the others shot her dirty looks, except for a few like Tsuyu and Todoroki. Tsuyu even introduced herself to Izuku after they changed into their costumes, saying he was probably only a villain due to circumstance and told him to call her Tsuyu. Why yeah. I'll do my best. His cheerful smile faded as soon as she looked away. He felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach, searching left and right for her again. To be a hero. To be at UA. To have a chance at something normal. To have a chance at this life. But you're not normal, are you, Izuku? You're a villain, aren't you? Your life is only going to end again, isn't it? His eyes widened. What was that? He gritted his fist, refusing to let this happen. He bit his bottom lip, feeling the sting. Awesome! Kirishima exclaimed, his jaw dropping. The place had transformed into a stadium. The ceiling was exposed, stands lined the walls, and huge lights illuminated the area. All the teachers and students were seated, watching Mirio and Class 1A. Yup, it's pretty great, right? Mirio pointed out with a thumbs up. But why is everyone here? Tsuyu asked, her finger on her lips. Observation, Aizawa replied, his hands in his pockets, looking annoyed. Even the press was present. He glared curiously at Izuku, who was staring down, deep in thought. Aizawa lifted an eyebrow at his new student's demeanor. He let Mirio take charge while remaining casually on guard by the sidelines. Whenever you guys are ready, come at me, Mirio declared, puffing out his chest with pride. What, all of us against you? Yep. The simple test. Without hesitation, Bakugo blasted ahead of the pack, charging straight at Mirio. He scowled, noticing someone running alongside him. Why you? Gritting his teeth, he shouted, Deku. Kaken. I have to prove I can be a hero too. Don't give me that nonsense. Bakugo aimed his palm at Deku. An explosion erupted, and they both skidded to the side, caught between the class and Mirio. As expected, the tension between Midoriya and the students was about to explode. It wasn't just Bakugo, all the students subconsciously readied themselves as soon as Midoriya took action. Aizawa ruffled his hair. This isn't good. Midnight, the R-rated hero, nudged Eraserhead. What do you honestly think of the new student, Izuku Midoriya? I want to believe in him and All Might, but I can't help but feel on guard around him. She crossed her arms, a thoughtful pout on her lips. Well, that's how it is with former villains. It's probably why he was assigned to my class. My quirk, you know. Second, I'm not going to share my thoughts on Midoriya just because you're curious. If I act objectively about the fact that he was a villain, it will only complicate this delicate situation. Aizawa put in some eye drops, needing to stay alert for the class. Midnight nodded at his words. Maybe it wasn't just because of your quirk, but also because of who you are as a hero and teacher. Aizawa remained silent, watching over his students. That Bakugo shouted, unleashing an explosion as he catapulted toward Deku. Kaken. Izuku backed out of the radius at the last moment, evading him with a backflip corkscrew. He landed a short distance from the UA students on a stone mountain that Cementus had created. Mirio ruffled his hair. More or less expected from a hothead. He had seen Bakugo at the sports festival. But it was how the other students would react to Bakugo's actions that mattered. Two kunai flew at Deku. One grazed his cheek as he dodged, tilting his head. The other was deflected by his mask guard with a loud clang and sparks. Izuku focused on his attacker after recovering. She was below him, staring back up at him. Sorry, that was for Jairu and the class representative, she said, her hand shaking from the throw. But how could anyone think it would be okay for you to be in our class? Especially after what happened to those two. Some students were skeptical about her intentions, while others empathized with her emotions, rallying around her. Izuku stood above, looking down. Her words struck him deeply, but his empty eye socket cast a cold aura back at her. Suddenly he sensed danger. He broke the intense moment to warn them. Mineta, Mina, Aoyama, and Kaminari had already been taken out and were off to the side. What? But we barely started. Izuku struggled to grasp the situation. Where's Togata? It's always best to eliminate long-range fighters first, don't you think? Mirio appeared right behind him. But I don't know about you. Izuku gasped, instinctively reacting. He executed a swift kick aimed at Mirio's chin, but it passed right through him as he transitioned into a punch. The impact landed squarely on Izuku's chest, knocking him off the cliff. He quickly regained his footing, kicking off the concrete wall and skidding to a halt. Coughing, he stood up. A phasing quirk? He's gone again. Uraraka pointed upward. Izuku's eyes widened. Then he can teleport? 2 quirks. He scanned the area, hearing 2 loud thuds. Kirishima and Bakugo were down. Man, if you guys had worked together as a class, maybe it would have gone better for you, Mirio remarked. What? Bakugo too? No way. Uraraka stood beside Izuku. He's right. That moment when we didn't focus on him. Izuku gritted his teeth. They were being taken out one by one, and their numbers were dwindling fast. Before long, it was just Mirio and Izuku left. I've noticed you haven't used your quirk. Why is that? Mirio asked. Izuku met his gaze. I don't really like using it unless I have to. Is that so? Then I decide you have to. Mirio declared. Izuku's lips curled slightly at the jest. I decline your order. Mirio shrugged. I tried. He took a serious stance. Izuku nodded, his fists clenched with determination. Yeah. Mirio's eyes narrowed. I'm not going to underestimate you. I won't either, Togata. A dim emerald flame flickered from his eye socket. Togata sure is strong, Izuku thought, feeling the ache in his muscles. He trudged back to Gran Torino's home, happily exhausted after his first day at UA. Unlike the other students, he wouldn't be living in the dorms. He was under Gran Torino's supervision. He pondered how different this life would be. Suddenly, a cheerful voice interrupted his thoughts. Hey, Izuku. Uraraka greeted him, her energy infectious. I was going to visit Jairu. Do you want to come along? Jairu? He hesitated, feeling uneasy. I don't think that's a good idea. But that's what you said last time, even though you really came through for her. She tugged at his uniform. Izuku sighed, realizing she was right. Okay, but only if Gran Torino gives me permission. He pulled out his old flip phone, a relic from a cheap bartender. Uraraka waited patiently, bouncing on her toes. Izuku hesitantly clicked on Gran Torino's contact name. Hello. Ah, Mr. Gran Torino, I was asked to spend time with other students. Is that allowed? Who is this? It's me, Izuku Midoriya. Tashinori. No, pal. Yeah, it's fine. Build relationships with your fellow classmates. They're future heroes as well. The line went dead. That was easy. Izuku muttered, left with a dial tone. Hey, he gave you permission, right? Come on, let's go. Uraraka urged, knowing how much Jairu needed to see him. She explained that Jairu had been traumatized by the experience with All for One, fearing he wouldn't return. Izuku gulped, thinking of Jairu. He straightened himself as they approached her house. Uraraka knocked on the door and stepped back, smiling at both Izuku and the door. As the door opened, a woman resembling Jairu, but older and wearing glasses, appeared. Hello, Jairu's mom. We came to see how she's doing. This is Deku, by the way. Can we come in? Uraraka introduced him smoothly, despite his past. Oh, yes, she replied, her tone bitter. Izuku felt a wave of disappointment wash over him. They still saw him as a villain. Jairu's mom, the students, the teachers, even Gran Torino had expressed that disdain before. How could All Might put so much faith in me? After all, I'm always going to be. But I suppose you did protect her during the Numu incident, and Uraraka said you were the one who found her. She sighed. So please accept my gratitude. I know you're not to blame. She smiled at Izuku. Come in. Uraraka nudged Midoriya and gave him a thumbs up. He scratched his cheek bashfully, determined not to let anyone down. No, I won't be a villain again. All Might, I won't let you down. I'm taking my first steps to becoming a hero. He stepped inside the home. Her mother led them upstairs. She has been a shut-in since she was released from the hospital. Her father is on tour, while I decided to stay home and take care of her. She knocked on Jairu's door. Honey, it's me. Your friends came to visit. If it's Kaminari or Momo, make something up. I'm just not in the mood, a weak voice echoed from the room. No, Jairu. It's me and Deku. Uraraka called out, nudging Izuku to speak as well. Yeah, it's us. Is it okay if we come inside? It was silent, barely coherent to herself. The door is unlocked, don't worry. Please be gentle with her. I'm worried, her mother whispered. Uraraka and Deku nodded in unison, acknowledging her concern. They tried to enter as quietly as possible. The curtains were drawn, allowing only a dim light to filter in. She curled deeper into the blankets. Izuku's lips parted, but no words came out. His hand hesitated, and his gaze fell. He quietly asked if she was okay after the news. Her weak voice barely escaped, asking if he was all right. His eyes shifted back to the bed, filled with rumpled white sheets. He gulped, biting back his tongue. Uraraka nudged his boot, urging him to respond, her expression conveying that she had warned him about her worries. Thanks, I'm okay. But I came because I wanted to check on you. Do you think we can talk face to face? He attempted to muster his courage, feeling a lack of confidence. The weight shifted under the blankets. It's okay if it's just you or Uraraka, she replied, revealing that they were among the few who had seen her in her vulnerable state. Hey, how about we let some light in here? Uraraka rushed to the curtains as Jairu emerged from her cocoon of warmth. She pulled them apart, allowing the sun to stream in. The sky was gray. The dull light crept inside. With one last effort, she lifted herself up on the bed. A sheet slipped from her face like an autumn leaf. She wore an oversized plain white t-shirt and black pajamas, her knees and calves still buried in the sheets. As she tried to sit up, she hesitated, rubbing her arm instead of tucking her hair behind her ear, remembering her cords were absent. She didn't want anyone to see. Her shirt slipped down one shoulder, and she hugged herself tightly to stave off the chill. Why am I always so cold? Her eyes met his single one, tears streaming down her cheek, silently pleading for warmth and comfort. So he reached out, assuring her that he was there. In that moment, the empty light from the gray sky cast a delicate glow on her porcelain skin, illuminating her as a fragile portrait of unsung beauty. Gran Torino rubbed his chin, pondering the situation. No, it's not like that, Gran Torino, sir. Izuku clenched his fist nervously over his lap. She hasn't left her house since the incident. His eye calmed as he finished, staring sadly at the kitchen table. Gran Torino lifted his coffee mug, took a thoughtful sip, and set it down. I see. You have to be careful handling these situations. That poor girl has been through a lot. The journey to recovery isn't easy. I know, Gran Torino, sir. But I don't want to leave her like that. Well, it seems you have your hands full, kid. Don't worry, I'll give you some leeway in terms of liberty and curfew. Thank you, Gran Torino, sir. Don't thank me, kid. Just do your job as a hero, that's all. Then the microwave chimed. Oh, there's dinner. He hopped off his chair, happily heading to get his food. My job as a hero. Izuku mumbled to himself, his thoughts drifting to Jiru's words the day he left her with Uraraka. But you'll be there, right? To save me? It's still raining. Uraraka complained, opening her umbrella as they walked out of school. How should I ask Jiru for a day out? Uraraka exclaimed, startled by his sudden question as she fumbled with her umbrella. What are you talking about? Her cheeks flushed. She hadn't thought Izuku was interested in anything romantic. Dabi and Toga had that vibe, but him too? You can't take advantage of her. She's in a delicate place right now. That's definitely something Dabi would do. She accidentally blurted that last part, her imagination running wild. Izuku furrowed his eyebrows in confusion. What? Then he understood what she meant, his cheeks tinting with embarrassment as he stared at the ground. No, I didn't mean it like that. He stuttered, trying to clarify. I was just thinking of a way to help her get outside. I think it could help her. I wasn't thinking of anything weird. Uraraka's expression shifted from embarrassed confusion to delighted intrigue, especially as she noticed his innocent intent. That's a good idea, Deku. She looked up past the brim of the umbrella. Hey, you should ask her out today. Izuku's eyes widened in surprise. Huh. Sure you can. Jair once told me the rain is her favorite. This is probably your best chance to get her outside. Her eyes sparkled with the thought of Jairu being more social. I really want to help her. I really want to see her back at school. Her expression turned a bit sad, a tear threatening to spill. So you have to help her, okay? Uraraka. He gulped before nodding. Yeah. Uraraka wiped her eyes, determined to be strong for Jairu. Let's start planning operation, make Jairu smile. Izuku smiled at her enthusiasm. Yeah. Let's start. Let's head to your place. Oh, and I'm going to need your phone. She chirped happily, leaving Deku a bit confused. Don't worry, you'll be fine. Uraraka encouraged, slapping his back cheerfully. Just do your best. She skipped ahead and rang the doorbell to Jairu's home. Wait, Uraraka. He reached forward, but it was too late. Good luck. She grinned, hopping away as the door clicked open. Izuku stood frozen as the door slowly creaked open, trying to think of a reasonable excuse for being there without Uraraka. Hello, Midoriya, Jairu's mom greeted him. Izuku's anxiety spiked as he struggled to find the right words. Her glasses glinted with confusion. Uraraka isn't here? She scanned the nervous teen in front of her, noting he wasn't in his school uniform. Her glasses shifted, revealing a hint of parental amusement. Izuku shivered. It's not like that. Why is everyone assuming that? He waved his arms defensively. I was just hoping to get her to go out again. I want to help her. She could be ready too. When I texted her, she said she was willing to try. He concluded his embarrassed protest with earnest intent. She paused her teasing, recognizing his sincerity. Her lips were straight, and her eyes were obscured by the glare of her glasses. She placed a hand on his shoulder, acknowledging his struggles. A mother often worries for others, she thought. They shared a moment of eye contact, and the purple bag under his eye was evident since she first saw him. She reminded him that he needed to take care of himself before he could help others. His eyes widened in surprise as she lightly lifted the corners of her lips. She urged him to come inside. He expressed his gratitude, unsure of how to articulate his feelings. She shrugged her shoulders with a smile, welcoming him. "Hey, Gyro, it's Deku," he announced as he knocked on her door. "Come in," she replied, her voice more lively than when he had first visited her. It had been a few weeks since that initial visit, and she was making progress. As he stepped into her room, he subconsciously gasped at the sight of her. She was sitting up properly in front of her vanity mirror, dressed in a black turtleneck sweater and a modest white skirt that accentuated her figure. She wore black pantyhose and low-heeled boots, maintaining her punk rock flair with purple lipstick and eyeliner, exuding a sense of resolve. "You," he started, momentarily at a loss for words. "You look—" He stopped, realizing she was looking back at him through the mirror. Clearing his throat, he adjusted his eye patch. She smirked at him, thanking him for the compliment. She focused intently on her reflection, expressing her determination to be strong. A shaky breath escaped her as she lifted a thin finger to wipe her eyes. "You've been strong, Gyro. Through everything you've been strong," he said, his gaze dropping to the floor. She shook her head, letting out a weak scoff. "Don't do that." "But I know, but there's only so much supportive Deku I can take," she playfully groaned. His words caught in his throat, and he managed to smile. "Then today I'm just Izuku, okay?" His grin reflected back at her in the mirror. She raised an eyebrow teasingly. "Didn't know this Izuku was so cheesy, but you look good too." She finished her assessment of his outfit with a smirk. He wore his signature red shoes, black slim cargo pants, a green shirt with punk emblazoned across his chest, a black jacket, and his mask guard around his neck. He rubbed the back of his head, feeling a bit bashful. Thanks. Uraraka picked out the clothes. And I've been told how cheesy I can get, sorry." He took a few steps closer to her, smiling warmly. "You ready?" She nodded, taking a deep breath. "Just about." They exchanged one last smile in the mirror before she stood up. As she walked toward him, she gently grabbed his mask guard. "You know, I'm really fond of this." "Really?" Izuku raised his hand to touch it too, looking down at it. "I guess that makes sense." He met her gaze. "You know why I wear it?" She chuckled lightly. "How would I know?" He laughed softly in return. "Sorry. It's because All Might could always save anyone with a smile on his face. But I was a villain and most of the time, I never knew what to do. I was terrified, yet I always wanted to be a hero. One day, I realized, how can I save people with a smile if I'm always scared?" He let out an amused sigh. "That's when Dobby told me to cover my face. He actually said, 'Just hide that stupid mug,' but ever since then I wear it. Even if I'm scared, I want to save people, doing my best to reassure them, even if it's not a smile." He finished with a proud smile. She burst out laughing. "Oh God, you know how to ramble. I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of you." She held onto his shoulder for support. "It's actually really sweet." Her laughter faded into sincere gratitude. "Because of that, I'm still here. Sorry for laughing." She felt it was rude, but he was just too adorable. "Don't apologize. It's the first time I've heard you laugh. I like it." Her cheeks flushed a soft pink. Did he really notice something like that? Was this a date? "Gyro? You ready?" "Yes? She gulped. "Why, dude?" They had spent many days together since Izuku first visited her, growing closer with each passing moment. As her hand squeezed his for moral support, they stood at a bus stop, waiting alone. Izuku held an umbrella in one hand while Gyro latched onto his other arm. He maintained a calm demeanor, knowing how difficult it was for her to step outside. He was determined to make today a great day for her, to help restore her confidence and trust in people. Memories of her sipping her drink and twinkling her fingers as she said goodbye echoed in his mind. He had to help her after everything she had been through. The sound of the bus breaking the silence startled him. It opened its doors as people exited. Izuku was about to step forward but hesitated. Jiraiya was frozen, gripping his arm tightly. He wanted to say something, but the anxiety in her eyes held him back. The bus driver waited a few moments, shrugged, then closed the doors, continuing on his route. They were left alone in the rain, the drops hitting the ground creating a quiet melody. It was eerily silent, but he could hear her voice. "I'm sorry." "No, don't apologize, Jiraiya. It took a lot of strength just to go outside." "I'm sorry, going to the movies was a bad idea. I should have been more sensitive." He felt her shake her head against his arm. "No, I was really excited, but I just can't." Her voice cracked as she buried her face in his jacket sleeve. "I'm so sorry," she whimpered. Izuku closed his eyes, furrowing his brows. He took a deep breath before opening them again. "Do you want to go home?" She shook her head again, sniffing. I want to be brave again." She cried out in frustration, wrapping her arms around him and burying herself against him for warmth. "You're Jiraiya. You really are." He placed his free hand around her head, gently combing through her damp hair. The umbrella provided shelter for this moment. She nodded against his shirt, knowing he was doing his best to support her. "I want to be who I was before." She pushed her face off his chest, glancing up into his eyes. It quivered, but she held a small smile. She was grateful for his presence, unsure why he stayed when he had no obligation to do so. His hand moved from her hair to her face, gently tracing her cheekbone with his thumb as he rested his forehead against hers, expressing his desire to help her, just as she had helped him. She gasped softly at his comforting gesture, feeling the warmth radiating from him. As she unwrapped her arms from his torso and slid them up to his neck, her cold fingertips made him flinch slightly. She marveled at how warm he felt, especially on one side of his face. Pulling back slightly, she focused on his features, her gaze narrowing at the side covered by his eye patch. She hesitated, then asked if she could touch it. Understanding her intent, he glanced away before affirming her request, his eyes returning to hers. She braced herself, her hands trembling as they approached the eye patch. With a gentle pull, she removed it, and her eyes widened in surprise. It was different from what she remembered. Instead of a hollow socket, there was a dim emerald flame swirling within, a delicate ember that captivated her. Her fingers traced around the socket, entranced by the flickering light, which sparked a sense of hope within her. Izuku had anticipated a reaction of shock or fear, but he was taken aback by her calmness and fascination. Her hands returned to cradle his cheeks, and he felt his own eyes widen in surprise as she smiled at him. Despite her puffy eyes, pale cheeks stained with tears, and a cold, pink nose, she radiated warmth and joy. She asked him if she could request something, and he found himself swallowing hard before agreeing. She wanted to ask for his help in facing her fears, her smile transforming into a cheerful grin as she seemed to already know his answer. The rain outside felt less lonely now as they remained in each other's embrace a little longer. Later, during an interview, the host announced Izuku as the newest hero to break into the top 10 pro hero rankings. He expressed his gratitude for being there and shared how honored he felt after years of hard work and gaining society's trust. He wanted to live up to everyone's expectations, especially those of All Might. It was important to be strong on his own, but knowing so many people believed in him filled him with a sense of hope, much like All Might had inspired in him. The host noted how surprisingly deep his response was, and Izuku apologized for any awkwardness, admitting he had a tendency to ramble. The host encouraged him to share more about his relationships with other heroes, prompting Izuku to express his confusion. The host reassured him that it was an opportunity to clarify rumors, and Izuku agreed, wanting to support his fans. The conversation shifted to his relationship with Uravity, and Izuku quickly clarified that they were close friends who spent time together outside of work, though he acknowledged he was closer to some classmates than others. The host teased him about the rumors surrounding a love triangle, and Izuku was taken aback by the suggestion. After the interview, Izuku stepped outside into the rain, a droplet landing on his nose. He looked up, surprised by the downpour, and smiled as memories flooded back of a similar rainy day. He didn't mind that he didn't have an umbrella, he was simply happy to be home. As he entered his studio apartment, he felt a sense of contentment. The large window offered a view of the city skyline, and he noticed the familiar presence of someone waiting for him. She stood by the window, holding a hot cup of coffee, her gaze fixed on the rain outside. He recognized her outfit, recalling the day she had started to smile again. Her laughter was affectionate as she acknowledged his memory, and he joined her in laughter, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned into him, and they enjoyed the view together in comfortable silence. The rain always brought her happiness, and he felt the same. As they shared a moment of honesty, Jair turned to face him, resting her arms against his chest. Her playful demeanor shifted to one of innocent affection as their eyes locked. They were barely a breath apart, her lips slightly parted and her gaze soft. She placed her hand over his heart, feeling the warmth beneath the fabric, while Izuku tightened his grip on her waist, cherishing the comfort of their closeness. They slowly broke apart and stared into each other's eyes. The rain streamed down the window wall, creating a melancholic melody that drowned out their thoughts. The raindrops connected and separated on the glass, mirroring their own actions as they shared the same rhythm. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and she playfully removed his eye patch, running her thumb over his cheekbone. He nibbled on her ear, eliciting a quiet squeal from her as she fumbled to unbutton his shirt. They both paused for a moment, the air filled with the scent of rain and the warmth of their connection. She pushed him gently onto the bed, taking the lead. His hands slid up her pantyhose as she straddled him, his fingers exploring her hips and lower back while raising her sweater. She finally managed to open his shirt, releasing the last button. She hesitated, tilting her head in confusion, and he shook his head, assuring her it was nothing. He surprised her with a tender embrace, causing her to giggle and playfully slap his shoulder. They rolled around on the bed, the rain continuing its serenade to the city. As the rain began to clear, moonlight blanketed their bed. She cuddled against his chest, her legs tangled with his, sound asleep. Izuku gazed at the reforming sky, his empty emerald eye reflecting the clouded constellations while she slept peacefully. He groaned awake, struggling with the weight on top of him. She stirred at his movements, stretching her body with an adorable yawn before flopping back onto him, cuddling closer. He chuckled, gently urging her to let him get up. She sighed, barely awake, insisting he didn't need to. He acknowledged her point about his tendency to over-prepare. After a moment of playful banter, she crawled around him like a cat to find her phone. Checking the time, she mumbled against his shoulder, curling up on him again. He sighed, feeling defeated, but rubbed her back and kissed her forehead, reminding her of his need to leave soon. 2 hours later, Izuku was surprised they had slept for so long while getting dressed. Kyuka, wearing his dress shirt, was getting coffee ready. He searched for his eye patch, finally finding it on the floor. She handed him the thermos of coffee, teasing him about being late. He smiled at her playful nature, appreciating how she made him feel. She wished him well at work with a kiss on the tip of his nose, and he returned the gesture, heading for the door. As she followed him, she reminded him about her performance that night, and he assured her he wouldn't miss it. With a playful shove, she sent him off, calling him a hero nerd. He waved goodbye, his smile fading as he stepped into the hall, leaving behind the warmth of their shared moments. The rain had stopped, and the atmosphere felt different. Izuku felt a sense of heaviness as he stood there, contemplating where to go next. Kyuka, still nestled against him, suggested they find a quiet place. He remembered a nearby park from his childhood and proposed they walk there. They strolled side by side under the umbrella, the rain falling around them like piano keys. Upon arriving, Kyuka scanned the area for any signs of danger before suggesting they go to the swings. He happily agreed and pushed her gently, enjoying the moment. As they played in the rain, the umbrella was set aside. They took turns on the slide and climbed around the jungle gym. For a brief moment, sunlight pierced through the clouds, illuminating Kyuka's face, framed by glistening raindrops. The image lingered in Izuku's mind long after they left the park. When they reached her door, Kyuka expressed her exhaustion, but he reminded her that she had made great progress. She felt uncertain, questioning whether she could maintain that resolve every day. He reassured her that it would get easier and that he would always be there for her. Standing on her porch, she took a deep breath and thanked him, then rushed to suggest inviting their friends next time. Izuku smiled, touched by her words and the thought of their growing bond. Izuku felt a mix of excitement and apprehension as he considered the upcoming gathering with Jiraiya, Uraraka, and Yaoyorozu. He scratched the back of his head, unsure of how to express his concerns about Yaoyorozu's complicated feelings towards him. However, the pleading look in Jiraiya's eyes made it difficult to voice his reservations. He agreed, wanting to keep the peace. Jiraiya's enthusiasm was infectious, and she squealed with delight before quickly clearing her throat, apologizing for her outburst. She explained how much she missed Momo and was looking forward to seeing her again. Izuku nodded, feeling a sense of warmth at the thought of their gathering. He wished her well as she waved goodbye, and as he walked away, he sighed, contemplating texting Uraraka for help in smoothing things over with Yaoyorozu. Choosing a quiet path through the park, he found solace in the familiar scenery. He passed the swings and thought of Jiraiya, momentarily pushing aside his worries about Yaoyorozu. Today had been enjoyable, a glimpse of the normal life he had longed for. Suddenly, a voice broke through his thoughts, declaring that villains did not deserve to smile. Izuku's heart raced as he saw a massive fist descending towards him. It struck him with incredible force, sending him crashing back against a metal pole. Pain shot through him as he gasped for breath, feeling the warmth of blood trickling from his forehead. He didn't want to activate his quirk just yet. He needed to understand who was after him. A shadow loomed closer, and he recognized the figure as Death Arms, a pro-hero. The hero's voice was filled with anger as he accused Izuku of past crimes, reminding him of the chaos he had been involved in. Izuku's eyes widened in shock. He had never intended to hurt anyone. He struggled to explain that he was not the same person he once was, but the hero's grip tightened around him. As Death Arms prepared to strike, Izuku braced himself, determined not to use his quirk. He felt himself lifted off the ground by the force of the blow, and as he was slammed down, he could only think of the eye patch that had been a gift from Dabi. The rain fell heavily around him, blurring his thoughts as he faced the towering hero. In that moment of despair, a vision of himself appeared, a version of Izuku with two eyes. This other Izuku urged him not to give up, reminding him of how far he had come. The scene shifted to a younger version of himself, crying and feeling abandoned. The other Izuku comforted the boy, insisting that he would become a hero. But the younger Izuku lashed out, blaming the older one for their pain. The confrontation escalated as dark figures, representing All Might and All for One, loomed behind them, symbols of the conflicting ideals that had shaped his life. Izuku's emotions flared, and he felt a surge of anger directed at them. He grappled with the weight of their expectations and the darkness that threatened to consume him. Just as he felt overwhelmed, he was reminded of his determination to forge his own path. With a fiery resolve, he declared that he would not be defined by anyone else. As the chaos around him subsided, he felt a hand on his shoulder, urging him to take a step back and find peace. A familiar voice suggested they go get coffee, a simple yet grounding idea amidst the turmoil. Izuku took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next, knowing he had the strength to overcome his challenges. It seemed like Dabi was just what I needed. My body relaxed and I opened my eye, looking up at him. "Yeah," I replied, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. It was just the two of us now, everyone else had faded away. "Thanks, Dabi. You always look out for me." He offered his hand, helping me to my feet. He glanced away, a hint of boredom in his expression. "I guess that's just how being a big brother feels. Never really thought about it. So, how are you doing?" There was a dry sarcasm in his tone that made me smile slightly. "I think I'm currently being choked by a hero, so I can't complain." "Why aren't you using your quirk? Just like last time with Muscular." "That was different." "Was it? I don't know. I feel like I'm at a crossroads. If I keep going as a hero, I'll have to say goodbye to you guys. And honestly, I'm not sure I even want to be a hero anymore. I keep seeing the flaws in society's version of heroes." The society that had done this to me. They're just government puppets anyway, Dobby said, staring off into the distance. We all have to be who we are, there's no escaping that. He closed his bloodshot eyes for a moment, then opened them again after taking a deep breath. He raised his arm, pointing at me with 2 fingers while his other hand remained in his coat pocket. So be the hero you are. His smirk widened as he began to turn away. I'm going to try to catch some sleep. Don't forget about us, okay? As he walked away, his body ignited in a graceful sapphire fire. Thank you, Dobby. Did it always seem this simple? How had I lost sight of it? My first thought was that I would walk away from all of this. Death Arms narrowed his eyes, sensing something was off. His eye socket shimmered before it sparked and ignited into a powerful emerald flame. The fire burned him, forcing him to release his grip on me. He stepped back, shaking his hands in pain. You be sturdy. I didn't want to use it, but at this point, it's self-defense. Once I use my quirk, it usually means someone dies. Sorry. There was no hint of remorse in his cold, detached voice. The rain didn't diminish the intensity of his flaming eye, it only created a slight steam around him. He equipped his mask guard and swayed slightly before bolting toward Death Arms. Bring it! Death Arms shouted, ignoring the pain in his hands as he clenched them. The rain hindered his vision, and my boots barely made a sound against the ground. He sensed a presence to his right and swung, missing and hitting only the rain. I delivered a straight punch to his gut, causing him to grit his teeth. He slammed both hands down, but only struck debris. I perched on his massive fists, my burning eye tracking my hazy movements. I ran up his arm and leaped into a twisting knee strike, slamming it into Death Arms' jaw. He stumbled back from the aerial attack. I landed gracefully, my burning feathers fluttering around me. I stood apart from Death Arms, remembering a hero I always related to. I grabbed a flaming feather, which didn't burn me. I focused on increasing its output, and it grew longer, brighter, and denser without causing me harm. It's like Toga said, my flames burn everyone except me, I thought, staring at Death Arms. You will always be just a villain, he spat. I didn't respond. I swept the blade feather across the rain, pulling it back and preparing my strike. With one quick leap, I boosted myself with my wings. Death Arms roared as thunder boomed overhead, throwing his fists in a barrage against my swift movements. I dodged his attacks, stepping low, moving left, deflecting, and hopping into a counter. I focused on my footwork, delivering a powerful move. A scorching strike landed. Death Arms' body went limp, but he continued to struggle despite the flaming wound in his chest. He gasped for breath, and I leaned in closer. I have a theory. I bet you made sure to come here alone. You couldn't let anyone know you would attack me, because only a villain would do something like that, don't you think? I felt his body tense. My theory is that you've always been a villain, only wearing the mask of a hero. That's who you are, he coughed out. Maybe, but I can't stop now. You won't get away with this. I'm not the only one who thinks you should be free. It will look suspicious if they find me. I know that's why the rain will wash away your blood and ashes. You were never here. Without hesitation, I twisted and pulled out the feather. Death Arms' eyes widened as he prepared to scream. My wings enveloped him in a torrent of flames. As the flames subsided, everything was washed away. You threw away your life for nothing. I held a moment of silence in the rain for the fallen before lifting my head and walking away. As I walked up the stairs of a rundown building, I recalled that day. The place was empty, filled with the homeless as always. My phone began to ring and I answered it, hearing a familiar voice. Midoriya, how's it going? Good, Tokoyami, how are you? Fine, I was going to, someone interrupted him. Is that Midoriya? Here, let me invite him. Wait, Hawks, sir. I lost control of the phone as the conversation shifted. Midoriya, it's Hawks. Tokoyami and I were wondering if you wanted to join us for a Saturday soar. It's a new thing to bring together people with flying quirks. I couldn't help but laugh lightly. Of course, Hawks, sir. But I'm quite occupied right now, if you'll excuse me. Please give Tokoyami my regards. Yup, see you Saturday. I heard a muffled protest from Tokoyami before the call ended. Sighing, I reached the door and knocked before opening it. I'm back. There they were, all waiting for me. Uncle Deku. Eri ran up and hugged me tightly. I smiled, petting her head, and asked if she had been good. Happily nodded, saying Uncle Stain was teaching her chess. Hey, I wasn't done getting your hair ready, Dobby said as he approached. We were going to go out. Want to join? Eri looked up at me with hopeful eyes. I chuckled in defeat. Sure. It's been a while. See, I told you he would. Now let's get ready so we can go. Yes, Uncle Dobby, she exclaimed, happily following him to the couch as he began to do her hair. As soon as Eri left, she tackled me into a hug, burying her face in my chest. My turn, my turn. Toga exclaimed, bouncing in excitement. I missed you too, Toga, but you know. I know you're with her. She lifted her head to meet his gaze. Oh, I'm just so happy to see you, Izuku. Her eyes sparkled with warmth. It's because you're happy too, aren't you? His emerald eyes shifted from cold to sincere. Yeah, Toga, I am. The rain fell steadily from a gray sky, drenching the city below. He stood on the sidewalk, staring at the cafe across the street, his black spiky hair swaying in the misty breeze. Clenching and unclenching his fist, he glared through the window, ignoring the warmth in his chest as he watched her act like her usual carefree self. He clicked his tongue, shoving his hands into his pockets as he walked away. Inside, Uraraka set down a tray of food, feeling a sudden chill. She perked up, glancing toward the window, her eyes widening as she saw him disappear from view. Her expression softened. Dobby, she murmured, biting her lip in thought. Cover for me, I'll be back soon, she called to her coworker before rushing outside. The doorbell chimed as she dashed across the street, reaching the spot where he had vanished. Impatiently clicking her boots on the ground, she muttered to herself, Geez, don't run off like that. A blue spark caught her attention, drawing her gaze to the alley. She knew it had to be him. Taking a confident breath, she walked forward, though her steps faltered as she approached the darkness. Yo, he greeted, his presence commanding. Her eyes widened, and before she could react, he pressed his hand over her mouth, pushing her against the wall and signaling for silence with a finger to his lips. Shoo shoo. His laid-back, intense gaze held her captive. She nodded, her eyes softening as he slid his grip down to her neck, still holding her firmly. How have you been? She managed to gasp. His response caught him off guard, but he had come for a reason. He didn't fully understand her. He bit his lip, looking out into the alley. I'm alive. He pretended not to notice the small giggle that escaped her. She placed her hand over his wrist, her voice earnest. I missed that. Your sarcasm, I mean. A smile crept onto her lips as his grip loosened. Did you miss? She hesitated, noticing his gaze drop, his hair casting a shadow over his eyes, fingers twitching around her neck. But what is this? You know I'm a villain, right? Why are you still acting like we're on good terms? She shifted on her toes, her expression apologetic. Oh, sorry for slapping you. He inhaled sharply, surprise evident in his eyes. That's not what I meant. I had a long talk with Deku a while back. He told me about the lives you all have lived. I know you're a villain. But, she held his hand warmly, her voice cracking with emotion, you're still my friend, right? The rain echoed around them, droplets scattering violently in the wind, yet in their shared gaze there was a serene connection that felt timeless. He gasped, his eyes widening again because of her. His hand fell away from her neck, dropping to his side. I'm sorry, he whispered as the moment passed. The wind and rain began to calm. She fidgeted with her feet, looking down, hands behind her back. My shift is almost over, but tomorrow okay? He remained silent, hands tucked in his pockets. She took his quietness as agreement and smiled brightly. See you tomorrow, Dobby, she called, happily skipping away. At the sidewalk, she spun on her heels, her shoulders lifting in a cheerful gesture before she walked off. Dobby could only watch her go, dumbfounded by her nature. He scoffed, a smirk forming on his lips. I don't understand you at all. Turning back into the alley, he had somewhere to be. Toga shook his shoulder as they arrived at the meeting spot. I'm so excited, right, Dobby? He ignored her, as usual. Entering the dimly lit backstreet hangout, they were greeted and asked to sit while waiting for the others. Tamura scratched his neck, eyeing Dobby and Toga. This involves him, doesn't it? He muttered, irritation evident. Chisaki noted the frustration. He calculated the benefits but remained cautious, aware that the heroes were onto him. But it doesn't seem like he is after me. He just wanted to save Eri. If that's the case, I'll keep him close, like a carrot on a string. The cold, echoing footsteps filled the room as a figure entered. He wore his signature red boots with iron soles, an eye patch, black slacks tucked into the boots, a loose belt, compact gloves, a mask guard, and a black turtleneck sweater. Toga bounced with excitement, her eyes gleaming. Dobby concealed his genuine smile behind a sarcastic smirk. He truly missed him. After all, Deku was his only friend. Tamura fidgeted, his skin crawling. Chisaki observed him, like a piece in the chess game they were all part of. And Izuku Midoriya was the pawn. Eri hummed happily, swinging her hand as she walked with Deku, who smiled down at her. Abandoning me so quickly, are you? Dobby remarked, his tone teasing. Eri giggled at his monotone voice. But I barely get to see Uncle Deku. I always spend time with you. Dobby tucked his hands into his pockets, looking away. Sorry for boring you. But you'll always be my favorite. Uncle Dobby. He grumbled, shoulders stiff. You too, kid, you too. Come on, Eri, someone's waiting for you, Deku gently urged. She blinked in curiosity. Really? Who? Izuku chuckled, shaking his head. Dobby shot a curious glance at Deku, sharing an expression with Eri that made Deku laugh louder, though he tried to stifle it. They walked incognito as they always did, taking back alleys and secret pathways, blending into the bustling streets. No one noticed them, a skill they had taught Eri as she began to live with them. Despite being a high-profile hero, when he wanted to remain unseen, he succeeded. Dobby began to feel uneasy as they crossed a garden path bridge over a ditch, leading them to a secluded two-story building hidden among the towering skyscrapers. It was a wreck. Plants were growing through the brick walls, and a corner on the second floor was chipped off. Dobby expressed his frustration at Deku for involving him in this situation, while Deku offered a sheepish apology. Eri looked at Dobby, then at Deku, still confused about what was happening. As they entered the building, Dobby dragged his feet behind Izuku, who led them up the stairs to the room with the missing corner. Eri's face lit up as she ran into the room and hugged Uraraka. Deku greeted her with his usual freckled smile. Hey, Eri. It's great to see you. Has he been behaving? Uraraka asked, nodding toward Dobby, who was trying to appear aloof. Eri giggled and nodded in response, prompting Uraraka to laugh back. Deku quickly thought of an excuse to leave with Eri. He mentioned that she hadn't seen the sky from this building and offered to show her. Eri asked if Uraraka and Dobby were joining them, to which Izuku smiled and said they would catch up later. Eri waved at Dobby, knowing this might not go as planned. Dobby let out a breath of amusement, acknowledging her cleverness in bringing him here. She laughed uneasily, asking if he was upset. Dobby closed the distance between them casually, rubbing his hair, his eyes revealing a hint of emotion. He admitted he wanted to be upset. Eri shifted her weight, delighting in his response. She mentioned it was a 50-50 chance he would be mad. Dobby asked if she knew what day it was, and she excitedly revealed it was their one-year anniversary. Dobby was surprised she remembered, even if he hadn't gotten her anything. Eri stepped closer, closing her eyes and standing on her tiptoes to press her forehead against his. They shared a moment of connection, both expressing how much they missed each other. This all happened after Uraraka moved out of her parents' home. She was still working part-time at the cafe but had taken on a freelance job as a hero. One night, after finishing her shift, she found herself confused about how to get back to her new apartment. Dobby was also leaving the cafe, and after a moment of hesitation, she reached out to him, asking if he could walk her home. He grunted but nodded, and she thanked him as they set off. They struggled to find her place and ended up in an abandoned two-story building, one of their safe houses. The cold air made her shiver, while Dobby's warmth was comforting. They exchanged NTMT glances, illuminated by the moonlight streaming through the missing corner. Their breaths mingled in the chilly air as she traced her fingers over his scars. When he asked if she was scared, she assured him she trusted him. They lay on the bed, breathing heavily. Eri absent-mindedly played with his hair while Dobby rested his head against her neck. Remembering what Deku had said about Dobby being an insomniac, she decided to hum softly in his ear, giggling when she heard him snoring. "Sweet dreams," she whispered. On the roof, Eri marveled at the sky, sitting beside Deku. He agreed that it looked beautiful, surrounded by towering skyscrapers that blocked the view. He reached out, saying it was almost as if they could grab the sky. Eri mimicked him, trying to catch the sky in her hands, which made him smile. He jumped to his feet, offering to help by lifting her up, causing her laughter to grow as he tossed her higher. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, interrupting their fun. Apologizing to Eri, he answered the call from Togata, who had good news about tracking down the rest of the league and needed Deku's help for a final strike. Izuku felt a surge of determination at the thought of ending things with Tamura and All for One. He agreed to help and slipped his phone back into his pocket. He turned to Eri, explaining that he had some important work to take care of. She crossed her arms and huffed, looking away in frustration. He reminded her that he was a hero, which made her growl in childish annoyance. To ease her, he promised he would still make it to Aunt Jairu's performance, which made her relent. She lifted her hand, sticking out her pinky and insisting he had to show up. With a laugh, he wrapped his pinky around hers, sealing the promise. They returned to the hidden safe house, and Deku offered to drop her off with Uncle Dobby and Aunt Uraraka. As he opened the door, he was taken aback by the sight inside. Uraraka had climbed onto Dobby, both appearing quite NTMT. Dobby rolled his eyes, trying to play it cool, while Uraraka jumped off him in embarrassment, insisting he should be more decent. Izuku coughed, trying to regain his composure as he glanced at Eri, who looked confused. He hoped she wouldn't ask questions about what she had just seen. Thankfully, Uraraka quickly acted as if nothing had happened, greeting them normally. Deku stammered through an explanation about needing to leave for an important task, and Uraraka nodded, sensing his urgency. She assured him they would take care of Eri, and he thanked them both, promising to return quickly. As he left, he felt a mix of relief and urgency, knowing he had to focus on the mission ahead. He latched around his face and took a deep breath, reaching the ledge. His wings ignited from his back, and he took off. Tamura scratched his neck restlessly, feeling smothered and unable to handle the situation. The heroes had reduced the league to a shadow of its former self. He was left with Spinner, Mr. Compress, and one last gnome. They had been camping for months in one of their last hideouts, a skyscraper on the highest floor in a populated business district. He refused to accept defeat, believing it was not checkmate. There was no way Izuku could be one of Sensei's favorites. Meanwhile, Izuku had flown to the coordinates where a helicopter was hovering. He climbed inside just as the door slid open, and it slammed shut, canceling the wind. As soon as he entered, the helicopter took off in a specific direction. Lemillion smirked as Izuku took the seat beside him, declaring his intention to confront their enemy directly. Izuku, initially confused, soon realized it was indeed a straightforward plan. A police officer handed him information about the mission, revealing that they had tracked the villains down to the business district. This could prove difficult if they didn't contain the situation. Lemillion reassured him that heroes were surrounding the location within a 2-mile radius, waiting for them to swoop in from above. Izuku nodded, mentally preparing himself. He adjusted his mask one last time, his expression hardening with determination. They were going to finish. The pilot informed them that their destination was right below. Lemillion jumped to his feet, while Izuku hesitated slightly, feeling anxious but ultimately standing up. They slid open the door for the two heroes. Lemillion leaped off easily, and Izuku took a deep breath before letting his body fall forward, arms spread wide, feeling the rush of wind. As he fell, Lemillion pulled his fist back, aiming for the roof. He roared as his fists smashed through the roof, sending debris flying. He possessed a power that had been passed down for generations, the power of one for all. Mirio Togata was All Might's successor. Drip, drip, drip. He was huffing, his breath visible in the cold rain. He couldn't fly because of the downpour, so he ran, splashing through puddles as he raced by. The owner of the coffee shop tended the bar like old times, offering a warm smile to everyone who entered. It was quiet as she took the small stage, clearing her throat and glancing around the audience. She saw Uraraka, Dabi, and Eri, but not him. She nervously introduced her song, explaining how much it meant to her because of someone special. Just as she began, the doorbell chimed, and her eyes traveled to it. Her lips curved up as she saw him, soaking wet and out of breath, trying not to make a mess by staying by the entrance. She clutched her guitar tenderly, closing her eyes as she remembered. She thought of the funeral and how someone had held her hand, never letting go. She recalled her frustration at feeling weak and losing another aspect of being a hero. But as she opened her eyes, the illusion of her memories faded, slipping away just out of reach. She lay there alone once more, remembering how she found strength because of him, how she returned to school with her friends supporting her, and how he was always there even if not in the spotlight. She dreamed of him beside her on cold nights, wishing she could ask him not to go, but knowing it was impossible. She remembered the moments they shared, the sun shining on the bleak horizon, and how she looked out at dimly lit buildings, thinking of him. The rain slid down the window, droplets merging and separating like their lives. She wondered if she was imagining him there, right next to her. Their eyes met, and she looked back fleetingly, realizing he was really there. He had vivid eyes, and his skin glistened in the rain. She was shocked to see him there, as she had expected to be alone. It was past midnight, the rain heavy, and she sat up in bed, surprised. Her parents were on tour, and she was supposed to be alone. Yet he was there, tears falling from his eyes. He whispered that he didn't think it was possible for him to be good, and she realized he was as scared and lonely as she was. They were supporting each other, mending their hearts together. She hugged him tightly, combing his hair and humming sweet nothings of encouragement, laying their bodies to rest on her bed. Although she had found him, she knew their meeting would not last. She ignored the signs of his struggles, focusing solely on him and his tears, staying with him through the rainy night until the misty morning. She understood that she had to let go and continue finding her way, even though she would miss him. It was time to wake up from this dream,